Chapter 2245. Who didn't want to ascend to the heavens in a single step? Who didn't want to transcend mortality and attain sainthood? Who didn't want to obtain such an opportunity, a rare opportunity? Now, they only needed to kill one person to achieve it. What was there to hesitate about? In an extremely short period of time, this news spread wider and wider. The entire Deluo heaven was in an uproar. Countless experts swarmed out, chasing and intercepting Jiyu Duxing, using all means possible to target him. And in this process, Jiyu Duxing's identity was exposed bit by bit like the wind. Jiyu Duxing, male, 20 years old, weapon of expertise, sword. Master of the Deluo Heaven Weapon Pavilion, currently traveling the world. When he obtained the celestial sword technique, unknown. However, he was still in the Heavenly Weapon Pavilion 2 months ago. During this period, he didn't show any connection with the celestial sword technique. It was only after this trip that this opportunity suddenly erupted. Therefore, it could be concluded that he obtained the celestial sword technique by chance within these 2 months. 2 months ago, his cultivation was only at the level of a saint. Obviously, it was because he cultivated the celestial sword technique. The great effect of the celestial sword technique was imaginable. Jiyu Duxing, escaping from the Hungduan Mountains yesterday, fighting with so-and-so and fleeing in defeat. Possible destinations: 1. So-and-so Mountain. 2. So-and-so Gorge. Jiyu Duxing, personality, straight as a sword, would rather break than bend. Cold face, often dressed in black. Jiyu Duxing, height, weight, working methods. All the information related to Jiyu Duxing spread throughout the entire Daluocean within a day or two, as though flowers had blossomed on the ground. So it's just a little guy who just advanced, but got lucky and reached the heavens in a single step. Such a heaven-sent opportunity. It's said that the celestial sword has the inheritance of a saint. For Jiyu Duxing to be able to transcend mortality and attain sainthood in such a short period of time, it's clear that the rumors are true. The conclusion is, we must not let him go. Everyone in the Deluo heaven had the same thought. When Mo Tianji's intelligence reached deep into the Deluo heaven, it was when the Deluo heaven's encirclement of Jiyu Duxing was in full swing. When the person in charge saw that such a lively thing was happening here, wasn't this the best opportunity for his Tianji intelligence department to be established and show off his skills? Therefore, he immediately put up the name Tianji and began to attract customers. Then, he began to analyze Jiyu Duxing in depth. This guy's private organization coincidentally has the same name as our Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Every piece of information that Mo Tianji's Heavenly Armament Pavilion sold had been thoroughly tested and verified. So, there was no mistake about it. In fact, it was impeccable in all aspects. As a result, the buyers gave good reviews one after another. Thus, for a time, Tianji became famous. It quickly gained a firm foothold and began to radiate outwards. Jiyu Duxing would never have dreamed that he had nowhere to hide during this period of time. Almost every moment, someone would accurately find him. He simply didn't have any time to rest or breathe. And, the mastermind behind all this was the Heavenly Armament Pavilion commanded by Mo Tianji. Wasn't this the so-called flood rushing against the Dragon King's temple? If Jiyu Duxing knew the truth, he would probably go crazy from anger. So, it wasn't impossible for him to grab Mo Tianji and swallow him alive. Unfortunately, he didn't know that the only thing he could do now was to escape. He would use all of his abilities and all of his wisdom to find the slightest chance of survival. But, the Heavenly Armament Pavilion immediately launched a very specific service. According to Jiyu Duxing's personality, way of doing things, and temperament, recommended Jiyu Duxing will undergo a series of changes. 1. Here, all the possible changes that Jiyu Duxing might make were analyzed in great detail before the final decision was made. At the end of the information, there was another paragraph. The accuracy of this information is based on Jiyu Duxing's possible changes up until now. But, if we continue to pursue him, as long as Jiyu Duxing doesn't die, there will definitely be further changes. So, at that time, there will also be Jiyu Duxing's possible changes, too. Once this analysis was sold, the response was like a tidal wave. It's really too sharp. It's simply hitting the nail on the head. Although we didn't succeed in pursuing Jiyu Duxing, his behavior is indeed the same as what it said. This is too accurate. I guess Jiyu Duxing himself might not be able to summarize it so thoroughly. This information is too valuable. Under such a wave of praise, all kinds of information from the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's intelligence department was sold like water. And the money from the sales was used to continue to build branches in various places. Every city and district was gradually expanded. Jiyu Duxing was miserable. He just couldn't figure out how his actions were so accurately guessed by others. He had just come to the Heaven Imperial Court for a few days. Even if someone in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion betrayed him, it was impossible for them to understand him so thoroughly. This was too mystical and too bizarre. It had been a full 10 days. He didn't have a moment of rest. Although the previous pursuit was a little tiring, it wasn't so intensive. What was going on? He was constantly struggling in a hopeless situation, and he had to be on guard against any possible danger that might appear at any time. Jiyu Duxing carried a stomach full of depression and confusion. He continued to fight desperately, continued to fight, continued to run for his life, circled between life and death. Sometimes, he couldn't help but imagine that in his past experiences, even if he faced Chu Yang, he wouldn't be so miserable. Unless he faced Mo Tianji, that damn pervert who calculated everything. Only then would he be in such a situation. Could it be that this time, he was so unlucky to face someone who could compare to that pervert? Just like this, the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's intelligence department became expensive. It was like water flowing in. 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 Until 20 days later, Mo Tianji found out by chance that his intelligence department was actually doing a report on Jiyu Duxing. He was shocked and almost scared to death. However, what kind of person was Mo Tianji? He quickly adjusted his state of mind and adjusted his strategy. In a short time, he gathered all the information about Jiyu Duxing being hunted down and brought it back for a look. After looking at it, he immediately laughed. Second brother Jiyu is still living a very coquettish life. However, with pressure comes motivation. If this thing of crisis is used properly, thus, he ordered, in the future, I will be in charge of analyzing this Jiyu Duxing's information and disseminating it to the public. As for the price of the information, increase it by 5 times from the original price. Below, the intelligence department immediately cheered. Since Big Brother had personally taken action, how could this Jiyu Duxing escape? He could only wait for death. Thus, they immediately sent out a message. The boss of this intelligence department will personally analyze Jiyu Duxing's information and give everyone more detailed information. The price was increased slightly from 100 purple cloud coins to 500 purple cloud coins. This message was definitely worth the money. If anyone was disappointed, they could refund it tenfold. Once this message came out, it immediately caused a strong reaction. Everyone felt that this information was really too black-hearted. This was called a slight adjustment. How much did you have to adjust if you wanted a major adjustment? However, as Mo Tianji analyzed Jiyu Duxing's every action without missing a single detail, including his facial expressions, what he saw, what he said, the moves he used, and so on, everything matched perfectly. Everyone immediately felt that this boss of the Tianji Intelligence Department was indeed too awesome. To be able to do this in intelligence, he had the qualifications to be a master of his generation. 5 times the price was indeed worth the money. 10 times the price for such detailed and accurate information was not unacceptable. It was too worth it. As a result, the intelligence of the Tianji Intelligence Department was once again out of stock. Second brother Jiyu, it's rare to get information about you. This really makes me excited. I can't believe that you've already reached the level of a saint by chance. You're really brave. You actually dared to surpass me without anyone noticing. How can I let you go so easily? Mo Tianji had a sinister smile on his face. If I don't give you a taste of my power, would you still know the immensity of heaven and earth? Reaching the heavens in a single step. Is it so easy to reach the heavens? Besides, this bunch of people are chasing after you like a swarm of bees. They always leave you some time to rest and breathe. How can this be? How can this force out all your potential? After such a long time, you haven't even been seriously injured once. You are really too weak. I will let you savor the wonderful taste of life and death. Are you looking forward to it? Mo Tianji was a little dissatisfied. Only I can fully unleash your potential. Second brother Ji, you better be careful. Don't worry. I will definitely not play you to death. I will definitely leave you with a small breath. But, if you don't go all out, then it will be hard to say. I have high hopes for you. Wahahaha. Mo Tianji's rare carefree laughter made the people of Tianji Intelligence Department outside the secret room look at each other. What happened to their boss, who usually didn't show his emotions on his face, today? And this laughter now, it seemed a little too lewd. It was the kind that didn't even bother to hide it. Therefore, one by one, orders, analyses, and intelligence regarding Jiyu Duxing flowed out of Mo Tianji's hands just like that. Every day, he had to analyze in detail. For example, how many injuries Jiyu Duxing had suffered, to what extent he was injured, how many battles he had fought, how much energy he had left, or how long it would take for him to recover. Mo Tianji even specially asked for a detailed map of the northwest region of Deluo Heaven. Every day, he would analyze it in detail and analyze Jiyu Duxing's possible escape routes. We must squeeze out all his potential and then continue to improve. There can't be any injuries or deaths. But, the information can't be distorted. Mo Tianji stroked his chin and smiled sinisterly. I want to see if second brother Jiyu will want to kill me when he sees me. Or will he want to thank me? Wahahaha. Mo Tianji couldn't help but laugh like a night owl. Everyone, please pay attention to my public reputation. Search for Wind Rides the World and you will find me. Tomorrow, the second lottery will be held. Chapter 2246. For some reason, Jiyu Duxing, who was thousands of miles away, shuddered. His powerful spiritual sense clearly sensed that he was being locked onto by someone. No matter what he did, this person could see it. Who exactly was this person? Jiyu Duxing broke out in cold sweat. He used all the methods he could and couldn't, and changed the methods he shouldn't have used. He just wanted to get rid of this feeling, but he couldn't get rid of it in the end. From beginning to end, as long as he moved a little, he would be hunted down by a strong enemy. In the end, Jiyu Duxing no longer used his own methods. He started to use Chu Yang's, Ji Mo's, Luo Kedi's, and Ao Sheyun's methods. In fact, he even tried all the methods that Mo Tianji had mentioned before. But Jiyu Duxing was soon disappointed. He almost lost all hope. No matter what method he used, it was useless. No matter what he did, the enemy could accurately predict what he would do next. In fact, he couldn't even escape from the enemy's calculations right from the start. This extremely terrible feeling made Jiyu Duxing feel like cursing. What the fuck are you? Are you a fucking roundworm in my stomach? Why is it that every time I change directions at the last minute, there's always someone waiting for me? How can I live through this day? For example, when I wholeheartedly go west and reach a fork in the road, I suddenly decide to go south. In the end, there's still someone waiting for me there. He even keeps on laughing. This information is really amazing. This guy actually went this way. Haha, every time Jiyu Duxing heard this, he wanted to kill someone. What kind of a B** starred could come up with such information? This B** starred is even more perverted than Mo Tianji. When I find Mo Tianji, I'll definitely provoke him to spar with this B** starred and see who's more perverted. Obviously, Jiyu Duxing's understanding of Mo Tianji was still at the level of the Heavenly Imperial Court for the time being. However, he neglected the fact that he himself was now a saint. How could Mo Tianji remain at the same level? Therefore, Mo Tianji, who was originally abnormal, naturally became even more abnormal now. Bang bang. Bang. A man in purple was kicked to the ground by Jiyu Duxing. Before he could even react, Jiyu Duxing, who was covered in wounds, had already pounced on him like a mountain. Jiyu Duxing immediately locked onto his divine sense, then controlled his body's mobility, sealed his dantian, and took control of his mind and spirit. Then, a slap landed on his face. Gu Duxing asked fiercely, "Speak. Where did you get the news about me? Tell me." This person was quite strong-willed. His life was in someone else's hands, and his tone was quite aggressive. "Why should I tell you? Hehe, kill me if you have the guts. I won't kill you if you tell me." Gu Duxing had no choice but to compromise first. The first few had all died in this way. They would rather die than say anything. This was a matter of the backbone and face of a high-level expert. The more you force him to say it, the more he won't say it. He would rather die than submit. Generally speaking, when one's cultivation reached such a level, how many of them were spineless? "If I tell you, you won't kill me." The man's eyes lit up and he asked, "Do you mean what you say?" Who would have thought that this killing god would actually be so easy to talk to? In the past, no one who had fallen into his hands had survived. A word spoken cannot be taken back. "I will never go back on my word." Gu Duxing was furious. "You dare to not believe me? Yes, this way, we have an exchange of conditions. It's not that I'm being threatened by you, right?" This person actually didn't give in at all. "Yes, that's what I mean." "All right then. Let me go first, then we'll talk." "I won't run away. You have to keep your word." "I'm not someone who goes back on my word." "That's not a problem." After a round of exchange of conditions, Gu Duxing finally knew that his information had been obtained by a currently famous and huge intelligence organization. This intelligence organization seemed to have a huge intelligence network. They had collected all of his battle information, all of his personality, and all of his habits. Then, they summarized and analyzed everything. After the analysis was done, they began to sell it wantonly. Currently, just by selling information related to him, they had earned at least several million purple cloud coins. And this number was just a few days ago. Just by selling information about Gu Duxing alone, this organization had already earned a lot of money. What kind of fucking intelligence organization is this? They actually use it to make money. Gu Duxing was so angry that he couldn't take it anymore. "They framed me while selling my information. While I was running away like a dog, they were counting the money loudly. There's actually such a thing in this world. What kind of weirdo could come up with such a wicked idea? They're really more perverted than Mo Tianji." Gu Duxing finally couldn't take it anymore and cursed. "Oh right, what's the name of this organization?" Before the man left, Gu Duxing finally asked this question. When he asked this question, the man had already turned around and walked a few hundred feet away. He stood at a corner. Gu Duxing stood there and asked, not chasing after him. "The name of this organization is called Tianji Intelligence Department." The purple-clothed man took a deep breath. He turned around and looked at Gu Duxing. "Thank you for not killing me this time. If you can escape from this disaster, I will go to your heavenly armament pavilion and create a great undertaking together with you. I've received your kindness and will withdraw from this pursuit. Take care." After he finished speaking, he cupped his hands and left. Watching this saint-level expert leave, Gu Duxing fell into a daze. Tianji Intelligence Department. Tianji. Perhaps ordinary people might not have any reaction to these words, but as Brother Jie, how could Gu Duxing not have any reaction? Could it be that this intelligence organization was created by that bastard Mo Tianji? Is it possible? It's impossible, right? Why would he deal with me? Something's not right about this. Gu Duxing frowned. At first, he denied it, then he wasn't sure. Could it be that black-hearted and goddamn Mo Tianji's doing? Otherwise, who could be so familiar with my character and temper? Who could be so familiar with Brother Jie's methods? Leaving me with no path to heaven and no door to hell. Although there are many capable people in this world, there are not many who can make me, Gu Duxing, so embarrassed. But, if it's really Mo Tianji, then this guy is too inhumane. Is there a need to play me like this? He really wants to play me to death. Gu Duxing thought for less than a quarter of an hour before he once again embarked on the journey of escape. It wasn't that he didn't want to continue thinking, but because there were already many people surrounding him from all directions. The current Gu Duxing was like a super big meat pie. Everyone wanted to eat it, even though this meat pie was actually poisonous and could poison anyone to death. Waha, he's really still here. But why is this guy in a daze? Why did the intelligence say that he would definitely be in a daze? Is he deliberately cooperating with that intelligence? Many people cheered and laughed, flying over as if they had found a mountain of gold. To think that the Tianji Intelligence Department had even predicted this. Mo Tianji, you damned perverted bastard. Gu Duxing roared with grief and indignation. I'm going to fuck you yuan %. As he cursed, he ran for his life. After that, he was surrounded 4 or 5 times in a row. Gu Duxing could finally confirm that the person who sold him the intelligence behind the scenes was definitely Mo Tianji himself. This point was already confirmed without a doubt. Because at that time, he had already fallen into a situation of certain death, with no possibility of turning the situation around. However, it was a rare mistake in the intelligence that misled all the pursuers, allowing him to break out of the encirclement from all directions. However, he met his opponents again in waves. If it wasn't for that error in the intelligence, he would definitely have been intercepted and killed there. There was absolutely no chance of any fluke. Although the intelligence was extremely accurate, no one could say that they didn't catch up with Gu Duxing. But there was almost no real danger of life and death. In fact, in order to find out if this intelligence department was Mo Tianji, Gu Duxing even purposely put himself in a desperate situation. As expected, that intelligence misled him again, leaving him with a chance of survival. Driven by such accurate intelligence, Gu Duxing actually felt more and more in his heart. Why is it as if these people were sent by Mo Tianji to practice his swordplay? However, even with such a realization, Gu Duxing still didn't dare to be the least bit careless. Mo Tianji might let him off, but these people chasing after him definitely wouldn't show him any mercy. His life would be in danger at every turn. Just the slightest bit of carelessness could cause him to lose his life here. This game is really not fun. Gu Duxing was running away. His heart was full of tears. Mo Tianji, you damned perverted bastard. Hurry up and leave. If you don't leave, I will really be played to death by you. Although he said that, Gu Duxing also knew that if he didn't make another breakthrough, this game would definitely not end. Because Mo Tianji wouldn't allow it to end like this. The conclusion was that he could only continue to be hunted down according to the script written by Mo Tianji. If he wanted this game to end, there could only be 2 results. First, Mo Tianji would make a miscalculation and he would die under the siege. As for the second, that was if he finally succeeded in breaking through and stabilizing his realm, he would become so strong that no one would dare to chase after him. And to achieve such an effect, his cultivation would have to at least reach the peak of the saint level. And he was still a very, 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 very far away from that step. This meant that before he reached that goal, he was destined to be hunted down and unable to avoid it. He could only passively earn money for Mo Tianji and continue to earn money like this. This conclusion made Gu Duxing burst into tears. It was too much of a scam. Chapter 2247. Gu Duxing estimated that by the time he finally ended his escape, that goddamn perverted bastard Mo Tianji would at least be able to earn a few 100 million purple cloud coins while he was being chased. Or even more. That goddamn perverted bastard. This is too ruthless, isn't it? Gu Duxing cursed in his heart as he fled. I've never seen anything like this. You should at least leave me some time to relieve myself. Ever since I was noticed by you, I basically don't even have the time to relieve myself. Therefore, Mo Tianji gave out more and more information without anyone knowing about it. And the information became more and more concentrated. And the price of the information also rose accordingly. And it became more and more expensive. However, more and more people bought it. And there was an endless stream of them. As a result, the Fector Intelligence Department became more and more powerful. Their reputation spread far and wide, and they became more and more reliable. I sold the information to you, right? My information was right, right? My analysis was right, right? Gu Duxing was indeed there, right? That's right, right? He did say those words and did those actions. That's all right, right? Since that's all right, then with so many advantages, if you still can't kill Gu Duxing, then that's a problem with your own strength. Does that have anything to do with my information? Of course, basically no one questioned Tianji Intelligence Department. Once they went and were questioned in return, other than showing their incompetence and that they were a super idiot, what else could it mean? With such accurate information, you can't even kill Gu Duxing. What? Can. Say. What? Do. Therefore, under the premise that the people of both heavens and earth were kept in the dark, no one knew that this pursuit had already changed from the route one day. This seemingly absurd but actually very strange pursuit had already quietly turned into Gu Duxing's personal sword training journey on that day. Gu Duxing's road to improvement. The road to the peak. Of course, this business also created Mo Tianji's money-making journey. He could make as much money as he wanted from private banks. Of course, the Tianji Intelligence Department had also been expanding without a sound during this pursuit. In just a few short months, they bloomed all over the Deluo heaven. Moreover, there was still a large surplus of purple coins. Therefore, it was really hard to say whether it was Mo Tianji who had fulfilled Gu Duxing's wish or Gu Duxing who had fulfilled Mo Tianji's wish. It was rather strange. In short, Gu Duxing realized that he didn't know when, but he had already become the target of Mo Tianji's manipulation. He had also become the mastermind and executor of the conspiracy. Furthermore, no matter what he did, he couldn't get rid of the fact that he was collecting money for Mo Tianji and becoming Mo Tianji's accomplice. Even if he agreed, no one else would. Who wouldn't want the cloudy heaven sword art? Furthermore, the most ridiculous thing was, old man is obviously a victim. Gu Duxing looked up to the sky and sighed. His heart was tangled. Tens of thousands of miles away, Mo Tianji sat in the hand of Tianji. His face was full of an enigmatic smile. Second brother Gu, you should be very grateful to me. This kind of life and death experience, with all the experts in the world being your practice, is like a whip, lashing you forward. You have no choice but to improve. Haha, furthermore, I'm here to help you control everything. Although it's a bit far away and there will be some omissions, if you can't even handle those, what kind of brother Jie are you? Mo Tianji looked at the densely packed information in front of him and smiled sinisterly. Now, all the other people's information had been handed over to others to handle. Mo Tianji was going all out to blow Gu Duxing to the peak. Even if you're just a pig, I'll blow you to the heavens. Mo Tianji smiled sinisterly. It's a pity that the others don't have such an opportunity. If they were all whipped together like this, how satisfying would it be? After thinking for a while, he suddenly frowned. If I were to frame them myself, and then cause a dispute, that's also a good idea. In Mo Tianji's secret chamber, a smug and lascivious laughter suddenly rang out. Outside, Mo Tianji's trusted subordinates felt a chill run down their spines. They couldn't help but shudder. Whenever boss laughs like this, someone is bound to be unlucky. I wonder who will be the unlucky one this time? In the Deluo heaven, Gu Duxing fled from west to east, from east to north, from north to west, from west to south. He fought and killed along the way. Since this time, Gu Duxing had thoroughly established his lofty status of being invincible with one sword. The lonely swordsman, Gu Duxing, fought and killed along the way. He remained undefeated despite thousands of dangers and tribulations. He galloped freely in the Deluo Heaven Imperial Court. After this pursuit, if he heard anyone say I've been through hundreds of battles in my life, Gu Duxing would definitely snort disdainfully. You've been through hundreds of battles in your life. That's nothing. I've been through no less than tens of thousands of battles in just 4 months. Motherfucker, I've been through hundreds of battles every single day. That's not even a single fucking day. You've been through hundreds of battles in your life, and you still have the nerve to brag in front of me. This pursuit was still ongoing. Over at Demon Emperor Heaven's side, Chu Yang had already started to train his troop. After 4 months of continuous selection, in the second month, Chu Yang very logically displayed the Heavenly Soldier banner. Of course, it was the flag of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. He officially started to recruit those experts who had passed the selection. For this, Chu Yang specially occupied all the mountains outside Luohua city and used them as the headquarters of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Outside the mountains, he opened up countless training grounds and set up countless military camps. Every day, those who passed the selection would enter the military camps like flowing water. No one had any objections to this. Because the ultimate purpose of their arrival was ultimately to fight the extraterrestrial demons and eliminate the extraterrestrial demons. Heavenly soldiers fighting the extraterrestrial demons was a matter of course and appropriate. It was a tit for tat. It was a perfect combination. Some people exclaimed in admiration. The name Heavenly Armament Pavilion was really too reasonable. As for the training of the troops, it was even more needless to explain. Since they were going to war, they naturally had to train their familiarity with each other, tacit understanding, cooperation, and even various skills such as charging in battle formations. No matter how strong your individual combat power was, it might not be able to play a big role in the ever-changing battlefield. Of course, unless you were a super expert like Die. Of course, there were exceptions. The people who originally belonged to the Heavenly Armament Pavilion were scattered and assigned to various military camps as instructors. Of course, these instructors were not so easy to be. Except for a small number of them, the rest of the soldiers were all higher in cultivation than the instructors. This reality made the instructors sullen to death. In addition to training the recruits, they also had to further train their own level. No matter what, their status could not be that low, right? If a dignified instructor could be beaten up by a random recruit, then there was no need to live. However, reality was so cruel, so they had to work hard to change the situation. In particular, the Chrysanthemum Saber King, Li Guanyu, after being recruited, also took the title of Demon-Slaying Saber King in advance. He brought his people into the Heavenly Armament Pavilion in a grandiose manner. As soon as he entered, he displayed extraordinary strength. Chu Yang was very surprised to find that this person was not only a master of saber arts, but also a master of military strategy, tactical arrangements, planning, and so on. Handing over a team to him, there was no need to worry at all. At most, he just had to send a few more instructors over and everything would be fine. Talent, Chu Yang sighed from the bottom of his heart. If it was not to kill the extraterrestrial demons and eliminate the extraterrestrial demons, how could such a talent be willing to submit to others? Seeing that everything was going on the right track one by one. At this point, Chu Yang could be said to be greatly relieved. Now that everything was on the right track and the hundreds of millions of purple cloud coins had been spent, it was rare for Minister Chu to have some free time. Suddenly, he was filled with lust. This afternoon, he found Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian and winked at them to accompany him back. He said that he wanted to discuss some issues regarding the future development of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Zi Xieching, who was at the side, couldn't help but twitch her mouth. This pervert, with a lewd look on his face, he looked like a pig whose brain was filled with sperm. Did he really think that everyone was so stupid that they couldn't tell? Wu Qianqian and Tai Butian, who were also aware of it, couldn't help but blush to their necks. They scolded angrily, "Get lost." Minister Chu was shameless. He smiled and said, "We haven't had a meeting for more than a month. Let's have a meeting today." At the side, Bai Shixian said innocently, "The meeting is serious business. Sisters, you should go quickly." At the side, there was a burst of laughter. Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian were too ashamed to show their faces. They grabbed Chu Yang and gave him a beating. Then, they sternly declared that they were not going back, definitely not going back. Minister Chu hung his head dejectedly, and left with his tail between his legs. During this period of time, Chu Yang also felt that his foundation for the saint-level cultivation had become much more solid. He was fully equipped with the strength to break through to a higher level. At present, the only thing he needed to prepare was to relax his body and mind. Then, he could start to try to break through. He didn't expect Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian to be so resolute and reject him without hesitation. Minister Chu went back gloomily. He thought to himself, "Why don't I go and have a drink with the Tang clan's third young master, Yarrow Ningning and Tan Tan? Relax my mood." Those two idiots had disappeared ever since they started working. Occasionally, when they saw Chu Yang, they would run as far away as possible. They hated Chu Yang so much that his teeth itched. Now, he finally found a chance to teach them a lesson. Otherwise, if he didn't teach them a lesson for 3 days, they would become unruly. However, when he was walking on the road, Chu Yang unexpectedly saw someone. This person had made all the hairs on Chu Yang's body stand on end. Tonight, the second lucky draw will be held at Weishin Public. From now on, everyone can leave a message. If you haven't followed my public Weishin, please turn on your phone and search for Wind Soaring the World. Chapter 2248. Ever since his rebirth, Chu Yang had developed a very special habit. As long as he was walking on the road, although he looked as if he was looking straight ahead and was simply walking on his own path, his divine sense had already enveloped a certain area around him. There was no exception. And this area had gradually increased along with the growth of his cultivation. Now, this area had already reached a radius of 5,000 feet. A radius of 5,000 feet. A radius of 5,000 feet. In the Heaven Imperial Court, this detection area was basically the limit of a beginner saint-level expert's detection area, and the periphery would more or less be overlooked. This kind of long-distance divine sense detection had to be constantly released for a long period of time, and it had to be released at any time, anywhere, all day long. For ordinary experts, even saint-level experts, this was a very extravagant move. But for Chu Yang, this was just a starting point. It was nothing more than the most basic range of defense. Since his rebirth, more than 70% of Chu Yang's time had been spent fighting with the enemy. This kind of constant probing with his divine sense had almost become an instinctive defense mechanism. Especially now that he had to face an entire world of enemies, he naturally had to be more careful. Secondly, Chu Yang's current divine sense strength was more than 10 times that of people of the same level. This kind of consumption was not too much of a burden to deal with. To be honest, a radius of 5,000 feet did not seem small. But if he really had to face a high-level saint, this distance was at most enough for Chu Yang to barely avoid being hit in his vital parts. It was inevitable that he would be injured. Since this detection area was not enough, and Chu Yang still had energy to spare, why not further expand the detection area of his divine sense? It was not that Chu Yang did not want to or could not do this. It was just that such a detection area could not be expanded any further. If it was expanded any further, it would interfere with the limit expansion of his divine sense when he was in danger. A distance of 5,000 feet was just the boundary between detection and limit expansion. Just as he was on his way to the auction hall of the Tang clan's third young master, he suddenly felt a throbbing in the range of his divine sense. At the same time, a ray of fast white light like a rainbow penetrated the space of the tribulation. Then, it flashed and disappeared. If he used his naked eye to detect it, or even his divine sense, he would not be able to detect it. But Chu Yang's tribulation space could sense the aura of danger. Chu Yang's hair stood on end. That ray of white light is actually a high-level saint. Why would he appear here? What the hell is going on? Chu Yang was shocked. The experts sent by the Demon Empress were basically all by Yarrow Ningning's side, and he was familiar with all of them. After doing this, the Demon Empress would never send anyone else over. Even if she did, she would definitely inform him. If that was the case, there was a high chance that the saint-level expert who appeared here was an enemy and not a friend. Could it be Mo Yuntian's? Otherwise, why would he suddenly appear in Luohua City? Chu Yang's vigilance was raised to the highest level. But, he didn't show it on his face. He quietly turned a corner and walked over at a moderate pace. As he got closer and closer to a certain location, Chu Yang discovered a few people. Chu Yang stealthily wiped his face, and changed into another appearance in an instant. Then, he calmly walked over. He had already locked onto a target. It was a black-robed man. Although that person looked ordinary and indifferent, like an ordinary person, Chu Yang could keenly feel that this person didn't care at all. Towards the world, towards life, towards everything, including himself, he didn't care at all. The black-robed man was also stained with blood. He seemed to be injured, but it could still be seen that the quality of his clothes was very good. In the current Luohua city, such injured people could be seen everywhere. They wouldn't attract any attention at all. With just a glance, Chu Yang immediately sensed that this person was injured. Although he tried his best to cover up his aura, after all, he was seriously injured. The weakness in his movements couldn't be hidden from others. Of course, this others could only be people above the saint level. Ordinary martial artists wouldn't be able to discover him. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, he recalled the earth-shattering battle not too long ago, and the streaks of light that streaked across the sky. If there were any top experts here, it could only be those few. If they were on the Demon Emperor's side, they wouldn't hide their tracks like this. Could it be? Chu Yang's thoughts flashed. That person seemed to have noticed Chu Yang's attention and was walking away. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and suddenly walked over quickly. He directly rushed to the front of this person and said with a surprised face, "Hey, aren't you Wang Laowu? Why are you here? You bastard, I haven't seen you for many years, ha ha ha." His tone was full of surprise and enthusiasm of meeting an old friend in a foreign land. Chu Yang patted his shoulder affectionately with one hand, as if they were brothers who had been separated for 3 million years and suddenly reunited in a war-torn street. That person frowned and looked at Chu Yang impatiently. "Who are you? I don't know you. I'm not Wang Laowu." Chu Yang laughed and pointed at this person. He was overjoyed. Look, you bastard, you really are a bastard. You don't even recognize your hometown. Even if you're afraid that I'll ask you to pay me back, you don't have to do this, right? Wang Laowu, how can you do this? The villagers all say that you've made a fortune, but you can't ignore your hometown just because you've made a fortune. I won't ask for the small amount of money you owe my family, okay? That person snorted and said, "You're unreasonable." After that, he flicked his sleeves and left. Chu Yang chased after him and said, "Hey, Wang Laowu, you can't be like this. Back then, your family didn't even have money to eat. You borrowed real money from my family. At that time, you and your sister Wang Laowu and your father were honest. He promised that once the hard times were over, he would marry your sister Wang Laowu to me. Later, your family didn't pay back the money and moved away. My family didn't say anything. This is something that everyone in the village knows. Now, you actually pretend that you don't know me." Chu Yang said with infinite grievance, "Although I'm very poor now, you can't treat me like this. Wang Laowu. Wang Laowu. Wait for me." When this sentence was shouted out, it immediately caused a strong reaction from the people around. "How can this person be like this?" Someone muttered, "Acting like this after getting money. This is called being ungrateful. He's worse than a pig or a dog. Yes, what's wrong with the rich nowadays? Why do they all have such a bad habit? He's simply a bastard. Stop right there. Say it clearly." Someone even blocked this person's path. "Go. Where are you going? He helped you when your family was in danger. Now that you've become rich, you actually turn your back on him? How can your character be so despicable? I despise you. Don't you feel embarrassed?" This person was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. "I'm not some Wang Laowu. I don't know who he is at all. I'm already so old. How old is he? Why would I borrow some things from his family?" Chu Yang said with an aggrieved look, "Wang Laowu, I didn't think of asking you to pay me back. I also didn't think of marrying your sister. I'm not young anymore, and I have a wife. It's just that I suddenly saw you in a foreign land. I couldn't help but be surprised. I wanted to find a fellow villager to talk about the old days. How did you become like this? You really turned your back on me and refused to recognize me. There were more and more people around. They all criticized, that's right. How can you be like this? He didn't say that he wanted to do anything to you. Can't you say something reasonable? Rich people all have this problem. When they see someone, they think that they want to borrow money from them. They see a little bit of money as more important than the sky. I despise you. I also want to be rich. But even if I'm rich, I won't be like someone. Fuck." This person's chest completely exploded. When did such a fellow villager pop out? It had been at least 3 million years since he left his hometown. Even if there really was a fellow villager, he would have already turned into bones. Besides, when did I call myself Wang Laowu? I actually have a sister called Wang Laowu. Even if my father is retarded, he wouldn't name his daughter Wang Laowu, right? How retarded must he be? Shouldn't he name her Hua Dao or something like that? If it wasn't for the fact that he was seriously injured and had no choice but to come here to heal himself, he would have long slapped this guy to death. How could he allow this wretched guy to blabber in front of him? What the fuck is going on? Chu Yang, who hadn't used his acting skills for a long time, had now advanced his acting skills to another level. He had perfectly integrated his acting skills into his voice and image. Snot and tears flowed down his face as he complained tearfully, "Old fifth bastard, how can you be like this? You really don't recognize me? I'm Gao de Quan. I'm really Gao de Quan. I'm your childhood friend. Turn around and look at me. Have you forgotten my face? It's only been a few years. I haven't changed much. I even recognize you. Why don't you recognize me?" The onlookers were obviously confused by someone's acting skills. They fell into a one-sided situation. They all started to criticize him. People would never forget their nature of wanting to watch a good show. Moreover, they would always sympathize with the weak. Even if they didn't know each other and met by chance, it was the same. However, this person didn't look like a martial artist. Moreover, his temper was very soft. Everyone was really not rich. It was rare to see such a rich person who was so easy to bully. If they didn't take this opportunity to bully him, how could they live up to their poverty? Damn it, they were poor for nothing. Today, a friend got married. Last night, he was dragged to spend his bachelor's night with his friends. 20 to 30 brothers sat together and bragged. They bragged until their saliva was dry. In the morning, everyone walked past the groom. Everyone bowed and said with sorrow, "My condolences. From now on, you're finished. You're no longer free." Chapter 2249. The face of the seemingly rich and soft man had already turned the color of pig trotters in soy sauce. He strode over and grabbed Gao de Quan. "Gao de Quan, let's go somewhere else and have a good talk." Chu Yang was delighted to hear this. He beamed and said, "You are finally willing to call me by my name. I knew you wouldn't forget me. Back then, we were so close under the moon. Good, good, good. I haven't heard from our hometown for a long time. Come, come, come. Let's go for a drink. Don't worry. I'll treat you to a drink. Although we are not very rich now, but we are from the same hometown. I don't lack the money for drinks. Are you relieved now? Ha ha ha." This laugh was extremely forthright. This is a real man. Forthright. A real man. What a character. A real man repays enmity with kindness. Good. Amidst the cheers and applause, Chu Yang beamed. He was so happy that his eyes almost disappeared. He cupped his hands and bowed. "Thank you. Thank you everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. Everyone is a good person. I should have brought everyone with me. Unfortunately, I am embarrassed. I have the heart but not the strength. I can only thank you verbally. I wish you all a peaceful life." The man next to him had a twisted and ferocious face. He looked at this guy who called himself Gao de Quan and gritted his teeth. He couldn't wait to swallow him in one gulp. In fact, this person was a super expert of his generation. So, his mental fortitude wasn't something to be trifled with. So, he shouldn't have collapsed because of such a trivial matter. However, it was a coincidence that he was seriously injured at the moment. So, his mental fortitude was somewhat unstable. Moreover, he was being slandered by Chu Yang. Moreover, he couldn't refute Chu Yang's accusation. He could even clearly feel that his lips were trembling. His heart was beating violently. This was a sign that he was so angry that his whole body was trembling. It was a very normal behavior. This guy put me in this situation and still has a face full of joy. You are ruthless. Thinking this old bachelor suddenly felt a sharp pain in his 5 internal organs. His 5 internal organs that were almost smashed by the enemy were showing signs of collapse again. Endure. I must endure it. No matter what, I'm still a top expert of my generation. I can't be angered to death by such a wretched guy. Endure. I can't take it anymore, but I still have to take it. Finally, Chu Yang finished thanking him. Then, he walked hand in hand with this old fifth Wang, and the two of them went straight to a restaurant. Who exactly are you? What is the purpose of this? The man gritted his teeth and panted heavily, barely maintaining his composure as he asked. Wang Laowu, you. Chu Yang said innocently. Today, Chu Yang's acting skills were really beyond his level. It was a great loss to the acting world that he didn't become an actor back then. I'm not a bachelor. Why don't you fucking call me Wang Laowu one more time? The man couldn't hold it in any longer and exploded. Alright, Elder Wang's brother, how can you be like this? Chu Yang was still improvising. Ow tilde, I'm going crazy. The man went crazy and banged his head on the table. He was in so much pain that he wanted to cry but had no tears. What do you want? At the table, the waiter who had just walked over was shocked. This, customer, I'm here to ask the two of you what dishes you want to order. Oh my God. The man looked up to the sky and sighed. His eyes stared blankly as if he didn't know what he was talking about. His life spanned hundreds of millions of miles, and his sword was once 1,000,000 masters. When have I ever received such disgusting and terrible treatment? Until Chu Yang ordered a table full of food and wine, the man's eyes were still blank and he didn't say a word. Come, Wang Laowu, Elder Wang's brother, we brothers have not seen each other for a long time. We must drink to our heart's content. Chu Yang enthusiastically raised his wine cup and urged him to drink. The man seemed to have woken up from a daze. He took a few deep breaths and suddenly looked at Chu Yang like a hawk. Who are you? Chu Yang smiled. Who am I? Why don't you guess? The man's eyes changed from the initial anger to deep thought. You are obviously not Gao de Quan, the man said with certainty. Well, you're right. It's a very rational judgment. Chu Yang smiled and raised his cup to invite him to drink. I'm also definitely not Wang Laowu. When the man said this, the muscles on his face twitched again. His eyes instantly became fierce. Damn it, how could I say such a degrading thing? Who am I? I don't even know myself. How can I be sure by someone else? May I ask Senior's name? Chu Yang instantly knew that the person in front of him was really angry. He couldn't provoke him any further. What if he took an inch and wanted a mile? Wouldn't he know whether he was a bachelor or not? The two sides would definitely fight on the spot. There was no other possibility. Therefore, he asked in a very humble voice. He was like a completely different person from before. Your current appearance should be a disguise, right? The man turned a deaf ear to Chu Yang's question. He looked at Chu Yang's face and sneered, although this disguise is very clever, very natural and almost flawless, your eyes are too clear now. Such clear eyes shouldn't appear on such a vulgar face. You and I are all cultivators. You should understand what I'm saying. Chu Yang nodded and said very respectfully, I've learned something. The respect this time was not deliberately pretentious. It was sincere. Chu Yang had thought about this before, but he didn't hit the nail on the head like the man in front of him. You disguised yourself after you found me by chance, right? The man said, generally, people whose divine senses are not at the level of a high-level sage will not be able to find my traces. But you are obviously not at that level. This puzzles me. The man looked at Chu Yang with an inquisitive gaze. In fact, if not for this suspicion, perhaps this man would have already killed Chu Yang. It was because of this uncertainty that the two of them talked on equal terms. I am indeed not at that level. Senior's eyes are right. Chu Yang admitted. Although you are not at that level, you have the ability to find me. This undoubtedly shows that your divine senses are special. The man said. Chu Yang frowned. And the most important point. You are not at the level of a high-level sage, but you have the guts to tease me like this. You must have noticed that I was injured previously. In my current state, I can't do anything to you. That's why you have the guts, right? The man said sharply. Chu Yang still didn't deny it. He nodded again. A peak expert was indeed a peak expert. Although he was angered to the point of being at a loss, he changed in an instant. After a moment of adaptation, his mood immediately stabilized. This is the Demon Emperor Heaven. It is the foundation of the demon race. But you are obviously not a demon. The man continued his analysis. There is no demon aura on you at all, he said with certainty. Chu Yang nodded. Yes, I am not a demon. There have never been many human experts in the Demon Emperor's celestial clan. Those whose divine senses are as sharp as yours and far surpass their own cultivation are extremely rare. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they are 1 in 10,000. The man's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Although your cultivation is too far away from the rumors, I think I know who you are. Chu Yang was silent for a moment. Senior's mind is clear and careful. Chu Yang admires you. The man laughed, but his expression turned cold. It is indeed you. Chu Yang said lightly, it is indeed me. But even if you want to kill me now, you are powerless. Since you can't kill me, why don't you have a drink with me? It is fate that we met. Since we are fated, why don't we drink together? The man took a deep breath. I may not be unable to kill you. Chu Yang smiled. Your Excellency only has the strength for one more attack. You may be able to kill me or injure me severely. But, no matter what happens to me, you'll definitely die after this attack. I believe that you will not do such a huge deal that loses everything and loses everything. Chu Yang smiled and raised his cup. This wine is really good. The dishes are also good. Even if I die tomorrow, why don't we get drunk today? The man looked at him with cold eyes. After a long time, a rare smile finally appeared in his eyes. Yes, even if I die tomorrow, why don't we get drunk today? Please. Please. The two of them raised their cups together and drank the wind and snow in one gulp. Since we are fated to drink together, I have not asked for Senior's name. It is really rude of me. Chu Yang ate. After saying those words, the two of them became a little more relaxed. Their previous cautiousness and caution had completely disappeared at this moment. They were all people who had reached a similar level, so there was still a little bit of trust between them. As people of Jianghu, they had experienced the hardships of Jianghu together. They could create a peaceful space for a while. I am Xu Kuang. The man held his cup. When he said his name, his aura seemed to have changed instantly. So it is Senior Xu Kuang. Chu Yang said seriously, I have heard of your name for a long time. Like thunder in my ears, the bright moon in the sky. You think so highly of me. Are you sure? Xu Kuang looked at him with a faint smile. Are you not trying to trick me? Chu Yang smiled and recited slowly, I am not crazy after reading all the poems and books. Since ancient times, I have been the king. Above my head, I dance with the sun and moon. My heart is long, but my love is longer. Xu Kuang sighed softly. I didn't expect you to know me. Chu Yang said in a low voice, actually, I like the last 5 words of your poem the most. Xu Kuang murmured, the heart is long, but my love is longer, yes. Chu Yang smiled. At this moment, his smile was warm. The heart is long, but my love is longer. Chapter 2250. Book Kwong chuckled with some unknown bitterness. He shook his head and said, drink. Drink. Let's drink together. How can you talk more than you drink? The two drank a few more cups. Chu Yang opened another topic and said, Senior Book Kwong, I'm very interested to know what happened back then. There are many people who want to know. Although Chu Yang said without rhyme or reason, Book Kwong obviously knew what he was talking about. He smiled bitterly and said, but I can't say it. I really can't say it. I know. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and said, but it's just talking about yourself. Is this okay? Just take it as a topic to drink. Talking about myself. Ha ha. Book Kwong smiled bitterly and said, actually, the road is longer than the road of love. It should be. He was silent for a moment and said, the road of love is longer. Chu Yang was startled when he heard this. Book Kwong picked up his cup and drank it in one gulp. He laughed and said, the road of love is broken. Is it long love or long road? He drank another cup and said, Love is dead but the body is alive. Love is long or life is long. He drank another cup and said, the body is alive but the heart is dead. It turns out that love is long and love is long. If not, how can the heart be dead? Then he picked up a wine jar and poured it into his mouth. With a bang, the empty jar was placed on the table. Book Kwong murmured, this is a goddamn fate. This bastard God. This fucked up world. This cowardly life. He looked up at Chu Yang and said, this is my own story. It's a mess. Chu Yang fell into silence. However, Chu Yang had already heard too much from these few sentences that had no head or tail. Book Kwong was seriously injured. If he were an ordinary cultivator, he might have died thousands of times, but the book maniac could still sit there and drink with insolence. All of his current cultivation was used to suppress his injuries. Therefore, all the wine he drank was carried by his own body. It was like an ordinary person who had never cultivated drinking wine. In fact, it was even more serious. Apparently, he was already a little drunk. However, these words were definitely not drunken words. They contained the kind of regret, sadness, and loss that was like a tsunami. And this made Chu Yang, who was listening to them, feel shocked. In an instant, Chu Yang inexplicably recalled the moment when Mo Ching-woo died in his arms in his previous life. The road to love is longer. The road to love is longer. Chu Yang sighed. He couldn't help but think of Mo Ching-woo, whom he hadn't seen for a long time. Finally, he couldn't help but mutter to himself, Ching-woo, are you all right? Tens of thousands of miles away, in the dreamlike veranda. Mo Ching-woo sat cross-legged under the clock. It was obvious that she had reached a critical juncture. Behind her, the two ancestral masters of the dreamlike veranda were also doing their best. Mo Ching-woo would reach the heavens in a single bound as long as she could overcome this hurdle. She would transcend the mortal world and become a saint. She would become one of the top experts in the world. However, this hurdle had yet to be completed until now. Everyone was already exhausted. They wanted to do it, but they didn't have the strength to. Mo Ching-woo's heart demon invasion was already very serious. On her beautiful face, a somewhat frenzied expression constantly appeared. Frenzied madness and clear-headedness intertwined back and forth. The two ancestral masters sighed in their hearts. It looked like she really wouldn't be able to make it. This girl's heart hurdle was really too heavy. It was really difficult to overcome. If she couldn't overcome the hurdle of love here, she would eventually stop at her current level, and there would be no possibility of further advancement. The two ancestral masters looked at each other, and actually had the thought of stopping. If they continued to force it, Mo Ching-woo might become a cripple, but the two of them would inevitably suffer heavy injuries. The two ancestral masters, who knew that the situation had developed to this point, couldn't help but sigh in their hearts at the same time. They didn't know what was so good about that Chu Yang that could actually make this girl so infatuated with him to this extent. Dreamlike Mortal World Pavilion, as the name implied, meant that the world of mortals was like a dream. In a dream of the world of mortals, one could cut off the roots of love and become untainted by the world of mortals. This was the true essence of the Dreamlike Mortal World Pavilion's mental cultivation method. Only by cutting off the roots of love and overcoming the hurdle of love could one reach the level of great success of the sect's mental cultivation method. Once one failed to pass, even if one had extraordinary talent and outstanding qualifications, it would still be a pie in the sky. But now, Mo Ching-woo, whom everyone in the Dreamlike Mortal World Pavilion regarded as their future hope and spiritual sustenance, actually did the opposite. She was deeply in love. You're so young. You're only a few years old, and you're still really pure. Why is your heart so? What a sin. The two ancestral masters sighed at the same time. They watched as a peerless prodigy was about to be destroyed by love. How could this scene not make them sigh? However, at this moment, just when everyone was helpless and reluctant to give up, but still had to choose to give up in the end, Mo Ching-woo's surging emotions, which were already so intense that they were boiling and had absolutely no possibility of being suppressed, suddenly exploded beyond its limits. From being emotional, passionate, and extreme, it suddenly rose to the peak. It was a complete eruption of the limit. No, it was an explosion beyond the limit. Mo Qingwu, who was still in the land of chaos, inexplicably let out a soft cry of joy. Chu Yang. Are you thinking of me? She suddenly opened her eyes. Her eyes shot out an enchanting divine light of transcendence, full of happiness and satisfaction. All of his previous worries about personal gains and losses, as well as being neither close nor distant, suddenly disappeared without a trace. As long as you miss me, no matter where you are, no matter where you are, I can feel it if you miss me. No matter how far away we are, as long as you have me in your heart, I have no regret. Mo Qingwu's emotions seemed to have sensed some subtle changes. She became calm and peaceful. All the previous worries, all the pettiness, all the jealousy, all disappeared without a trace at this moment, as if they didn't exist. It turns out that what I want is actually so simple and pure, just like this. Extreme in love, extreme in Dharma, extreme in heart, all Dharma is extreme. Under the dumbfounded, tongue-tied, incredulous and disbelieving gazes of the two grandmasters, Mo Qingwu's body suddenly rose 3 feet slowly, and just like that, she fell in midair. The next moment, the boiling aura around her suddenly paused, as if it was completely still. Then, the sky full of multicolored light danced and fell crazily as if the sky was collapsing. Below her, there were countless holy white lights surging in spirals, turning into a holy and pure white lotus. It kept surging and blooming, like a fountain, countless petals kept coming out. It held Mo Qingwu's body steadily. 1 flower, 2 flowers, 3 flowers. Slowly, the number of holy white lotuses that emerged finally reached the limit, 1. However, the white light from the ground was still gushing out crazily, half of it entering Mo Qingwu's body, and the other half entering that white lotus. It was endless, endless, endless. The 4 eyeballs of the two grandmasters popped out of their eye sockets at the same time. The two of them stretched their necks, widened their eyes, tilted their heads, and opened their mouths wide. This appearance was undoubtedly extremely indecent, especially on the bodies of women, and 2 of them were rather good-looking women. There was no need to doubt, and no need to be puzzled. The members of the dreamlike secular pavilion were all women, especially those with high status. What was so surprising about the 2 elders being women, and very beautiful women at that? But 2 beautiful women losing their composure at the same time was undoubtedly very indecent, very embarrassing. But the 2 of them obviously couldn't think of any indecent or embarrassing questions now, and were directly in a mess. For a moment, their minds were in a mess, and they didn't know what to think or say. There were only 4 words in their minds. How is this possible? This can't be. How can this be? After a long time, the 2 of them finally came back to their senses. They looked at each other, and saw the deep shock in each other's eyes, as well as completely unconcealed envy and jealousy. Heaven's net rosy clouds, earth surging holy lotus, lotus platform, dreamlike secular world. These 4 sentences were the origin of the name of the dreamlike secular pavilion. It was also the ultimate phenomenon that occurred when the dreamlike secular pavilion's cultivation technique was cultivated to the highest level, and when the real dreamlike secular world cultivation technique was unlocked. It was just that this ultimate realm seemed to have not been achieved by anyone for a very, very long time. Or rather, no one had achieved it except for the founders. The 2 founders only felt that their minds were in a mess, and they couldn't sort it out. How could this be? Mo Qingwu had obviously gone into the wrong direction, to the extreme, and stepped on the road of no return. The yellow spring was approaching, and the soul was leaving the spring at any time. Why did this happen instead? Could it be that we saw wrongly? They rubbed their eyes hard, and when they opened them again, they still saw the sky full of rosy clouds and white lotuses everywhere. The 2 founders only felt that they were going crazy in an instant. At the same time, they started to recite the highest level of the dreamlike secular pavilion. Dreamlike secular world, both illusory and real, break through the barrier of love, right heart and right spirit. Jade is pure and clear, the door of Tao opens. Secular world, dreamlike secular world. Only halfway through the recitation, the 2 stopped at the same time. Both of them were experts in cultivation, and they instantly discovered the key point. The problem obviously lay in the 4 words break through the barrier of love. The 2 looked at the rosy clouds all over Mo Qingwu's body, and looked at the golden lotuses that kept gushing out from the ground. Their hearts were filled with inexplicable bitterness, and they couldn't help but have the urge to cry out loud. One must know that ever since the founder of the dreamlike secular pavilion passed away, no one in the dreamlike secular world cultivation technique could cultivate the highest level of the dreamlike secular world cultivation technique. Although in these years, there were people who cultivated to the saint level, and even high-level saints at the peak. However, this legendary scene of rosy clouds descending from the sky, holy lotuses gushing out from the ground, and the reopening of the lotus platform never appeared again. Everyone only thought that their hearts were not sincere, or that they had not reached the level of merit, so generation after generation, they strictly followed the ancestral teachings, strictly forbidding the disciples from falling in love. The third prestige lottery is about to begin. Brothers and sisters, hurry up and leave a message, the opportunity is great. Chapter 2251. Although Mo Qingwu was already the most highly regarded among the younger generation in terms of cultivating the dreamlike mortal cultivation technique, and was also recognized by everyone as the one with the highest possibility of cultivating to the highest realm again, everyone was still filled with uncertainty in their hearts. They didn't think that Mo Qingwu could really reach that legendary realm. However, they did not expect that the inheritance of the mental cultivation method had actually gone into a wrong direction right from the start. Break through the barrier of love. It was not sealing the heart and locking the love at all. It was also not the inhumane prohibition of the feelings between men and women. Breaking through the barrier of love. Could it be that, only when one loves to the extreme and their feelings are as deep as the sea, could one be considered to have broken through the barrier of love? Extreme in love, extreme in the method, extreme in the heart, all the methods are extreme. Mo Qingwu's body displayed the highest realm of the dreamlike mortal cultivation method, the supreme aura of the supreme realm. This was the first time in a million years that this had happened to a descendant of the dreamlike veranda. It turns out that we were wrong all these years. The two ancestral masters' faces were full of tears. At this moment, their hearts were almost dead. They almost had the urge to cut their own throat. Most of the members of the dreamlike secular pavilion were women. However, all the women with good aptitudes, pure hearts, and cultivation materials were outstanding. Which one of them was not a peerless beauty? With so many beauties around, which one of them didn't have a dreamlike appearance and a flower-like appearance? Which one of them did not have the feelings of a young girl? Which one of them did not have a lover who loved them wholeheartedly, or a person who was devoted to them for 10,000 years without regret? However, due to the harsh rules of the sect, each of them could only seal the love in the depths of their hearts forever. Enduring their hearts, with a cold face, they heartlessly rejected their lover. They had to bear this endless pain and loneliness alone. So many beautiful years, so much youth, were mercilessly wasted just like that. In the end, it was all because of a misunderstanding. It was because they had taken the wrong path and acted in the wrong way from the beginning. The two ancestral masters were dumbfounded. They were also people who had been through it. Back then, to break through the barrier of love, they had tried their true feelings, and they had also sincerely given up and loved each other wholeheartedly. Originally, they thought that their hearts had already closed and would never open again. Now that they thought about it, they could only feel tears flowing down their cheeks. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, that man with a face full of love, looking at her with a heart full of despair, that heartbreak, that powerless resentment. She seemed to hear that person's heartfelt plea again. Come with me. I beg you, come with me. That man was such a proud man, but for her sake, he did not hesitate to put down his pride and beg. If it was not for that true love, how could he be so humble for love? Don't practice that kung fu anymore. Come with me. I will protect you. Why? Why is this? Why are you doing this? In the end, the man who loved her deeply screamed towards the sky in despair. His face full of tears. Why is this? For what reason? That man who had cried out to the heavens and earth, that man whose heart had been broken by her. If you don't marry, I won't marry. I will wait for a lifetime. That hopeless and powerless vow, that lonely and bleak figure that staggered away. Many years later, that man had walked his life's journey in endless loneliness, but he had never forgotten that vow, that he would cross 1,000 mountains and rivers just to see her one last time. Before he died, his lips trembled, and he looked at her and begged, in the next life, don't practice this, okay? He still remembered the heart-wrenching pain he felt when he faced the new grave. They were separated forever. That man who had loved her his whole life, lived alone his whole life, and never got the slightest taste of love from her, slept in this yellow soil. His last words before he died were, no regrets. No regrets for you. If there is a next life, will you marry me? Seeing Mo Ching Wu practice the true meaning of the dreamlike mortal cultivation method because of extreme emotions, the two ancestral masters were heartbroken. Facts speak louder than word. Breaking through the barrier of love is never to reject love. Being pure as jade is absolutely not only a virgin, being loyal to the person you love is also a kind of pure as jade. Loving each other wholeheartedly, loving each other to the extreme, understanding each other's true feelings, is the true breaking of the barrier of love. I finally understand it. But I understood it too late. Too late by hundreds of thousands of years. That man who once loved me so deeply, where is he? Where is he? Mo Ching Wu's cultivation was complete, and she slowly stopped. She only felt happiness and satisfaction in her heart. Chu Yang, I have mastered it. I have improved. I can follow you now, I can protect you. I can share your burden. I can dance with you. From now on, I am as light as a dream, floating like a dream, floating like a dream, floating like a dream, dancing in the sea of blood and mountain of bones enchanting, roaming the Jianghu, accompanying you in the sea of blood and mountain of bones, you can always see my inextinguishable enchanting. Don't ask if I can fight 1,000 miles with my sword, from now on, I can fight 1,000 miles with you. Don't ask if I regret it, having you in this world, having you by my side, is enough. Life and death together. I will follow you in life and death, whether it is heaven or hell, whether it is wind or frost, whether it is difficult or dangerous, whether it is any. I only care about life and death. Slowly stopping, the rosy clouds in the sky gradually disappeared, and the sacred lotus on the ground also disappeared in an instant. Mo Ching Wu gently opened her eyes, but as soon as she opened her eyes, she saw two people in tears. Two ancestral masters, what happened to you? Looking at the two ancestral masters who seemed to have aged a few hundred years in a very short time, Mo Ching Wu panicked. What is going on? The two ancestral masters were clearly young and beautiful before, how did they become like this now? Could it be that my seclusion this time actually took a few hundred years? This is impossible, right? Mo Ching Wu's heart was in an indescribable panic. We are fine. We are very happy, very happy. The two ancestral masters choked and said, congratulations, Ching Wu. You finally mastered the highest level of our dreamlike world cultivation technique. Thank you. You've made us realize what the real, dreamlike world cultivation technique is. It turns out that the so-called truth of love is so simple and pure. The two ancestral masters looked up to the sky and sighed. At the same time, we were envious of you, jealous of you, and hated you even more. You let us know how stupid we were. How stupid we were. At this moment, how regretful our hearts are. Thinking of the back mountain of the dreamlike mortal pavilion, there were many graves there. How many seniors and juniors had fallen into eternal slumber there, spending their entire lives in solitude with their aunt, spending their entire lives in loneliness. What did we miss? How much did we miss? Thinking of how many women's graves were engraved with the words grave of the Wang clan, grave of the Li clan, grave of the Li clan. Thinking about it now, we were actually so envious. We actually also wanted to be able to have the surname of our beloved on our tombstone after death. Whether dead or alive, we would have a home to return to, and have someone to rely on. Who would know that we, the overbearing women who seemed to be peerless in our generation, who could move unhindered in the imperial court of heaven, would be envious of an ordinary woman's grave? From now on, the dreamlike mortal pavilion will never forbid marriage. Anyone who dares to obstruct the free marriage of their disciples will be punished with capital punishment. Tears streamed down the faces of the two patriarchs as they gave this order at the same time. This was a decision that had been delayed for a long time. From now on, The two of us will go out for a trip. The dreamlike mortal pavilion's mountain gate will be opened wide. If anyone wants to go out, you can go out by yourself. You are free to enter and leave. Go and see that person, even if he is already under the yellow soil. Immediately gather all the higher-ups of the dreamlike mortal pavilion and start the cultivation method discussion. One order after another was sent out like flowing water. The entire dreamlike mortal pavilion was suddenly in an uproar. A few days later, many graceful figures left the mountain gate as if they were flying. They flew in different directions as if their lives were on the line. I want to see your grave. I want to see you under the yellow soil. I want to tell you that I was wrong. I was really wrong. I let you down. Let me tell you, if there is a next life, I will definitely marry you. As long as you still want me, I want to see you now. No matter if you are white-haired or old, I want to ask you, if I marry you now, will you still want me? Is it too late? Is it too late? I am coming. No matter how you are now, wait for me. You must wait for me. Every woman's face and eyes were filled with indescribable anxiety. There was anticipation, shyness, but also fear and hesitation. I hurt you like that before, but now I know that I was indeed wrong. Will you still want me? The feelings that I severed back then, are they still there now? There was only one person who was flying at top speed with an intoxicating smile on her face. That was full of satisfaction and a sincere desire to meet soon. That was Mo Qingwu. Mo Qingwu finally left the dreamlike mortal pavilion. She flew all the way to the demon emperor heaven, traveling day and night. She almost didn't rest at all as she hurried on her journey. The mountains were thousands of miles away and the rivers were long, but her heart had long had a clear direction. Her final destination. Now, she was flying towards her own happiness. The end of this journey was the end of her dream. Other than that, everything else in the world was no longer in her eyes and no longer existed in her heart. Chu Yang, I am coming. From now on, I will go through thick and thin with you, share a fate and dance together. For life, I will never leave you. Before Mo Qingwu left, at the Dreamlike Mortal Pavilion's cultivation technique seminar, everyone sincerely sought advice from Mo Qingwu. How exactly should one break through the barrier of love? Mo Qingwu only left behind 4 sentences. Light like a dream, floating like a dream, dancing enchanting like a sea of blood and a mountain of bones. Don't question a sword for 1,000 miles, life and death together. Chapter 2252. These few lines were a poem that Xue Leihan wrote to Mo Qingwu in the previous life. It was also the name of the 8th fragment of Chu Yang's calamity sword, and also a summary of Mo Qingwu's feelings in her life. Having lived 2 lives, the word love had never changed. For Qingwu, for Qingwu, for Qingwu, for Qingwu, for Qingwu, life and death, but also for Qingwu. But what Mo Qingwu didn't know was that from then on, these few lines had become an essential part of Dreamlike Veranda's mental cultivation technique. At the same time, it was also an explanation of the highest mental cultivation technique. Light like a dream, floating. Why did it say that? Dreamlike Veranda, as the name implied, was a dream without any weight, so it floated. In other words, to practice this technique, one needed to be indifferent to the mortal world. A sea of blood and a mountain of bones dancing enchantingly. What was a sea of blood and a mountain of bones? That was the path of the Jianghu. The path of the Jianghu was not the path of return, so to practice this technique, don't have any other thoughts. Dance enchantingly. What was enchantingly? Enchantingly, a beauty. As for dance, what was dance? Dance, the simplest explanation was dancing. Then, who would an enchantingly beautiful woman dance for? She only danced for one person in her life. This was a woman. Therefore, to practice this technique, it was still important to put women first. From that moment on, Dreamlike Veranda officially became a pure female sect. Male disciples, no matter how outstanding their talents were, would not be accepted in the future. Don't ask me to fight 1,000 miles with a sword. You don't need to ask, I will naturally fight 1,000 miles with you, to repay kindness and revenge. For the person I love, I can also fight in the Jianghu. But there must be a king. Life and death together. Life and death together. It was about love. What was love? Love was to follow in life and death, to never leave or abandon. To the sky, what was the sky? It was the sky. If I can follow in the sky, then what about the ground? This meant that no matter what, I will be with you. A daughter is rare for loyalty. A man is rare for loyalty. Extreme in love, extreme in law, extreme in the heart. All laws are extreme. This was the real dreamlike veranda. See clearly, remember it in your heart, and don't pay too much attention to it. From then on, from these 4 lines, dreamlike veranda was truly on the right track. The regularity of the heart, the regularity of love, and the regularity of life. And Mo Qingwu had become the 2nd-generation ancestor of the Dreamlike World Pavilion because she had left behind these words. He became the #1 contributor to the creation of the Dreamlike Mortal Pavilion's true cultivation method inheritance. Of course, this was something that would happen a long time later. At this moment, Mo Qingwu was walking on the road towards the Demon Emperor Heaven, towards where Chu Yang was. He flew. That was where her dream was, the way home. Actually, wine is really a good thing. Chu Yang raised his cup and said, Elder Shu, wine can make you forget your troubles when you're unhappy. It can also make you recall memories that you can't forget. It can also make you open up old memories that have been sealed for a long time. Shu Kuang chuckled. His eyes were somewhat blurred. Then, he suddenly looked straight at Chu Yang and said, Do you know why I want to get drunk? He actually squinted his eyes a little mischievously and said, Especially in front of you, my enemy, yet I can get drunk so easily. Chu Yang pondered seriously for a moment. Then, he smiled and said, Actually, sometimes in life, the enemy is much more reliable than some people around you. Elder, do you agree with this reason of mine? Shu Kuang laughed and said, Well said, this is the most important reason, the most important of all. Of course, there must be other reasons. Shu Kuang said, You're young. To be honest, I really admire you. Although I still have to kill you in the end, I really admire you. Even though our positions are clear, I don't want to speak against my conscience. Chu Yang said, Oh? When you killed Yuan Shu too, you were really straightforward. Shu Kuang narrowed his eyes and said, I admire this very much. Although your killing intent was unparalleled that day, you were still a small ant in the end. Even if Yuan Shu too didn't expose Moyun Heaven's identity, his sect was still not something that you could provoke. For you at that time, provoking such a super sect was actually not much different from provoking the entire Moyun Heaven or even the Moyun Heaven's royal family. But you still killed him without hesitation. I admire you very much, and I also envy you very much. In addition, I'm also very jealous. Shu Kuang laughed and said, You're really young. You're young, and your actions are really to my taste. And, your character is also not bad. Shu Kuang said, Just like today, I'm in trouble now. I believe that you have countless ways to easily kill me. There's no need for you to personally step into the dangerous place and risk your life to give me a chance to fight with you. But you didn't do so. Instead, you generously invited me to drink and talk to me sincerely. He narrowed his eyes and said, I admire this character of yours. Chu Yang smiled faintly and said, Elder, you're seriously injured now. If I were to fight, it would be a joke and even more unfair. Although there's no enmity between you and me in the past, in the end, we'll have to fight to the death. Jianghu matters will always be settled in Jianghu. Jianghu matters will always be settled in Jianghu. It's nothing more than that. Shu Kuang laughed loudly and arrogantly. For some reason, Chu Yang always had a feeling that in the process of talking to Shu Kuang, there seemed to be something in Shu Kuang's heart that was always ready to move. That was a kind of emotion, a kind of special emotion that seemed to have been suppressed for a very long time. The most important reason Shu Kuang drank 3 cups in a row and suddenly smiled, is because, although there was a smile on his face, at this moment, there was a bone-deep sorrow that was boundless and endless. It's because you can kill anyone for your woman, at all cost. This makes me envious, jealous, and hate you. Shu Kuang laughed and said, Because, I don't. Chu Yang frowned and said, "You don't." "I don't. I'm not as good as you. I admit that I'm not as good as you." Shu Kuang smiled bitterly and said, "Back then, I had 2 wives and 5 concubines. Although I felt that my cultivation was not weak, I didn't think of competing for the position of the emperor. Every day, I just focused on bringing them around to play and laughing. But finally, one day, we were attacked by strong enemies. There were more than 10 high-level saints and they attacked me at the same time. At that time, I was unprepared. At the first moment, I was seriously injured and the situation was completely out of control. That day, in order to cover my escape, 3 of my concubines self-destructed and died. Her soft and delicate body instantly turned into a bloody mist that filled the sky. As for the other 2 concubines, one of them died together with the enemy in order to protect my wife. The other one was killed by the enemy. Of my 2 wives, one carried me and escaped, while the other stayed behind to stop the enemy with her life. After being seriously injured, she was captured and committed suicide. The one who carried me and escaped was my first wife. My wife, Meng Er, burned her life potential and tried her best to escape with me. For more than 300,000 miles, she didn't rest for a moment. Finally, she sent me safely to the Mist River. Half a day later, she died of exhaustion. I still can't forget that she carried me and sank into the river. Seeing that my injuries had recovered, her eyes had a trace of relief. Then, she kept vomiting blood and died in my arms. In the last part of the journey, she actually burned her original divine soul as the price to survive. Her divine soul was completely destroyed and she was beyond redemption. At that time, I could only watch helplessly and couldn't move at all. I watched them self-destruct and die one by one. I watched her get killed. I watched her block the enemy alone. I watched her escape with me for hundreds of thousands of miles. I watched her die in my arms. Shu Kuang's eyes were a little frantic, but I couldn't do anything. I couldn't. Chu Yang frowned and said, "With your status and cultivation, there's actually someone who can do this. If you didn't say it yourself, it's really hard to believe. All these years, I've been investigating. Who is it that wants to deal with me? Why do they want to deal with me?" Shu Kuang sneered. The group of people who ambushed me at that time were all masked and disguised. They even used strange techniques to hide their characteristics. But I tracked them down all the way and finally found them one by one. There were a total of 10 people in that group. 18 of them were killed by me one by one. But the last one, the leader, I still couldn't find out who he was. How can I take revenge if I don't get rid of the leader? I didn't participate in the battle between the kings. But Yuan Tianjie promised to help me take revenge. Furthermore, with Sage Monarch as my guarantor, it was Yuan Tianming who helped me investigate those 18 people. So, I'm willing to serve him to death. Shu Kuang took a deep breath and exhaled deeply. When he said these words, his expression was very strange. There was a faint indifference of a dead heart. His tone was extremely flat. Such an unbearable past seemed to be telling someone else's story in his presence. "So, I'm very envious of you. I'm very jealous of you. I even hate you. Although you're being hunted down by the entire Moyun sky, you're still protecting your woman until now. I'm not as good as you. I admit that I'm not as good as you." Shu Kuang said sincerely, "Just on this point, I'm already far behind you. So, when you invited me to drink today, I didn't hesitate at all and came just like that. Because, even if you didn't invite me, I must give you a toast. A toast to someone who can make me sincerely admire you. A man. A good man." Crazy Book raised his wine cup, and respectfully looked at Chu Yang with a kind of unprecedented awe and envy. "Here's a toast to you. Good. Cheers." Chu Yang drank up. What is a man? Only a man who protects his family and his woman well is a good man. Shu Kuang smiled. His smile was always very indifferent. But, no matter how one looked at it, it felt a little miserable. Chapter 2253. Back then, there were 10 people who besieged you. 10 high-level sages. Now, 18 of them have been killed. Chu Yang frowned. Was it during the Battle of the Kings? Shu Kuang took a deep breath. It was earlier than the Battle of the Kings. It wasn't until 3 years after I was attacked that the Battle of the Kings broke out. After a series of battles, the ownership of the Heavenly Imperial Court was finally determined. Chu Yang nodded lightly and said meaningfully, "Originally, Yuan Tianji was still a very loyal person." Shu Kuang said, "To me, he was indeed very loyal to me. Those 18 people were all found out by him and then killed by me one by one. If it weren't for his help, I believe that even if I spent my whole life, I might not be able to find them, let alone take revenge. So I was willing to assist him and become the Lord of Black Cloud Sky." Shu Kuang raised his head and looked at Chu Yang. "So, I will do my best to take revenge for his son. No matter how unfilial his son was and how he deserved to die, even if I have to wipe out my conscience, I will still do it." Chu Yang sighed deeply, looking at the King of Books in front of him. For a moment, there was a lot of pity in his heart. Those 18 people, their martial arts were very high, right? Chu Yang asked. Of course. If they weren't extremely powerful, they wouldn't have been able to injure me so badly that I couldn't fight back. Shu Kuang gritted his teeth. If they fought alone, they were no match for me. But if the 18 of them joined forces, I could only escape. Even the chance of escaping was very slim. Chu Yang said, "Is that so? Then, would they not know that you are actually still alive? This is very important. It concerns the life and death of all of them, but they didn't join forces again. They didn't even confirm your life and death. Do you know what this means? In my opinion, at that time, confirming whether you were alive or dead was the most important thing for them to do. And from the day you took your revenge, other than the first unlucky one, the other 18 people joined forces again to kill you and eliminate all future troubles. That was the most urgent thing for them to do. But they allowed you to defeat them one by one, killing them one by one. This is really thought-provoking. I don't think there are any idiots among those who have reached that level of cultivation. At the very least, not all of them are idiots, right? At the very least, after you killed a few of them, the remaining people should have known and realized it, but they still didn't take any action. I waited until you killed all 18 of them. This process seemed clean and tidy, but it was really thought-provoking. Back then, when they provoked an enemy like you, they clearly stood on different sides and could not live under the same sky. You died and came back to life, so they must be determined to take revenge. Instead, he is able to disregard life and death. Chu Yang smiled and said, "The willpower of these 10 people is really extraordinary." The bookworm's complexion suddenly became dangerous. He stared at Chu Yang with his hawk-like sharp eyes. "What do you mean by saying these words? What are you trying to sow discord?" "I don't mean anything, and I'm not trying to sow discord," Chu Yang said calmly. "I'm just surprised at the stupidity of these people. If it were any other person in their position, after provoking such a strong enemy like you, they actually didn't confirm whether they had eliminated the source of trouble, and were willing to conceal their identities. Perhaps you can understand that they thought that you were dead and that there would be no future trouble. However, after suffering from your series of revenge, they actually did not join forces to counterattack. There were more than 10 high-level saints. If they were to join forces, their strength would be quite terrifying. Could it be that they were too confident in the place where they were hiding after they changed their names? Unfortunately, such a secret place was still found out by Yuan Tianjie. Yuan Tianjie's ability is really strong. It's still worth it to serve such a powerful master." The bookworm heard these words that were both praise and derogatory, but also seemed to be reasonable. He immediately stood up. For so many years, every time he thought of the tragic death of his beloved wife and concubines, he felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. Every night, he would dream of it and feel heartbroken. Only at the moment when he killed an enemy could there be a channel for the hatred in his heart to be vented a little bit. All this time, other than revenge, he had never thought of any other possibility. But today, after hearing Chu Yang's words, he suddenly felt a great shock in his heart, and his imagination ran wild. "Have you ever killed the wrong person?" Chu Yang asked. "No, definitely not," the bookworm said in a daze, as if he was answering Chu Yang, but also telling himself. "Yuan Tianjie really found the right person. I'm impressed." He's worthy of being the master of this world. Chu Yang praised sincerely. But when the listeners heard this sincere praise, they really felt that the words were insincere. The bookworm was silent and didn't refute. By the way, there's still no news about the real culprit, the one who took the lead for hundreds of thousands of years? Chu Yang asked. No. The bookworm sat down slowly. Puff. He sat on the chair. In this case, Yuan Tianjie seems to be too useless. The first 18 people have been found, and there's only this last one left. He can't even find it after hundreds of thousands of years. Chu Yang said disdainfully, the first 18 people were found so smoothly, why is the most important one so difficult? Those 18 people, none of them is weak. The bookworm sat down and said in a low voice. His face was very ugly. How are they compared to you? Chu Yang asked. They're naturally not as good as me, but it's also a pity. The bookworm said. I don't know about this. Chu Yang said lightly, actually, I didn't say anything, and I didn't sow discord between you or anything. I believe you know everything in your heart, and there's no need to say anything. However, the person involved can't see clearly. Chu Yang nodded and smiled very easily. The bookworm nodded slowly and heavily, and his face was obscure. After this, the bookworm didn't speak anymore. He just drank one cup after another, frowning as if he was thinking about something. After a long while, he drank enough. The bookworm stood up and staggered away without even saying goodbye. When he reached the door, one foot was already out, but he suddenly stopped. With his back facing the bookworm, he said in a low voice, I'll find you someday. I'll look forward to your arrival at any time. Chu Yang looked at the bookworm's figure gradually disappearing into the crowd in front of the restaurant, and his eyes were extraordinarily complicated. Chu Yang even hoped that his conjecture was completely wrong. If it was true, then the blow to the bookworm would be absolutely devastating. But Chu Yang believed that the bookworm could completely understand what he meant. And the sentence that the bookworm said, I'll find you someday. It was definitely not just empty words. Someday, tomorrow and the day after could also be someday. Chu Yang returned to the Heavenly Armament Pavilion with a bellyful of thoughts. He even abandoned his original plan of visiting the Tang clan's third young master halfway. Even if he watched Meng Wuya, Li Guanyu and the others train their troops, his brows were furrowed. His brows were tightly knitted, but in reality, he didn't see anything. What's wrong with you? You look lost. Zi Sheqing asked. Sister Zi was one of the few people who could ask unusually straightforward questions. I'm just a little troubled. Chu Yang smiled bitterly. Today, I met someone by accident. Then I realized. Even if one's cultivation has reached the level of a high-level saint, or even higher, as long as someone wants to deal with you, it's not that difficult. Zi Sheqing said in surprise, this is how the world is. What's so strange about this? Is it worth making such a fuss over? Chu Yang heaved a long sigh. At first, Chu Yang thought that the bookworm would come to find him tomorrow or the day after, but he didn't expect him to come so soon. Just in the evening, the bookworm came to the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. He named Chu Yang and said that he wanted to see him. Although he couldn't use force at the moment, he didn't hold back the extraordinary temperament of a born king and a master at the peak. Seeing that the visitor was extraordinary, the guard naturally reported it immediately. Chu Yang hurried out to welcome him. Under the request of the bookworm, the two went to Chu Yang's study and immediately shielded all auras. There were only the two of them. The Heavenly Book divine technique that I practice has its own mystery and is very useful to Yuan Tianjie. The bookworm went straight to the point. Within the range of the Heavenly Book domain that I release, if Yuan Tianjie opens his mind and evolves his technique, he can easily break through the bottleneck in the Heavenly Book domain. Chu Yang nodded. In the territory of the 7 Stars Guards, I'm the only one who can help Yuan Tianjie practice without any scruples. The bookworm took a breath. How great is the specific effect? Chu Yang asked cautiously. It will be his own ordinary practice. The bookworm took a deep breath. More than 5 times. This temptation is too great. Chu Yang sighed deeply. 5 times the speed of practice. What a powerful reason this was. For anyone, this was more than enough. It was enough to do anything for this. The muscles on the bookworm's face twitched inexplicably. He said, "Then, is it true or not?" Chu Yang was silent. He said, I don't have the final say. You need to check it out yourself. Feel it with your heart." The bookworm clenched his fists. "It's a pity that I'm seriously injured now. Even if I want to go back to Moyun Sky, I can't do it." Chu Yang was silent for a while. He said in a low voice, "I can help to solve your injury. Even if I can't let you recover completely immediately, it's not a problem for you to recover half of it. But I have some other worries." "Other worries? What are you worried about?" The bookworm asked, puzzled. "I'm worried that if you go back this time, I'm afraid you'll die in Moyun Sky." Chu Yang said bluntly. "The cold this time completely disrupted my plan. I originally wanted to write more manuscripts these days and save them until the end of the year. Then, I'll immediately go for tenosynovitis surgery and rest during the spring festival. I can also use this reason to refuse to drink. I'll go light after the spring festival. Sigh, the plan can't keep up with the changes. At such a critical moment, I actually caught a cold and my whole body became like noodles. The 2 manuscripts that I saved with great difficulty were used up just like that. I hate colds." Chapter 2254. Shu Kuang nodded slowly. "I won't die. I won't go back now. Even if I go back, I'll go back openly." Chu Yang's eyes lit up. "Good. I'll help you." The world was really unpredictable. Just a day ago, they were in absolute opposition to each other. Now, they were united. Bookmaniac was so strange and ruthless. Of course, it was reasonable for him to stay in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. The whole process was really strange. In fact, when he expressed his willingness to accept Chu Yang's suggestion to stay in Heavenly Armament Pavilion, even he himself felt that it was hilarious. His original intention was to kill him. Up until yesterday, this goal had not changed. Just because he had a drink with him and listened to his strange and inexplicable arguments, he had a clear stance. Now, he was living in his house and had to rely on him to treat his injuries. Such a chance encounter in life was really bizarre. There was really no way to explain it. "By the way, the other 2 people who came with you wouldn't just leave you here, would they? They will still come back, right? Under normal circumstances, they will definitely come back. But this time, it's not certain. At that time, we were in an absolute disadvantage. If we couldn't lure the enemy away, I would have definitely died. As for the other 2, sigh, I can only hope that they will be blessed by the heavens. Elder, I suddenly realized that you may be the kind of person who is least likely to get injured, but has the weakest ability to survive. Just as you have guessed, my Heavenly Book Divine Technique has a great effect and can be said to be all-encompassing. It can almost eliminate the attack power of most of the techniques in the world. However, it is also because of this that if the enemy's attack power exceeds my limit, I will immediately be seriously injured. This is the biggest flaw of my divine technique. There is no such thing as a perfect divine technique in the world. If there is an advantage, there must be a disadvantage, and vice versa." Chu Yang nodded and said, "Elder, you're quite insightful. What you're practicing is the Heavenly Book Divine Technique. As the name suggests, it's obvious that although books are good things that can enlighten one's mind, increase one's wisdom, and even pass down one's legacy, books are really all-encompassing. Books themselves may not be able to last forever. All principles, legacies, and matters are presented, concealed, and evolved in the book. However, it is precisely because it is all-encompassing and can affect almost everything that it leads to its lack of focus. It is very difficult to reach the true pinnacle level. Most importantly, it lacks the decisive attack power to determine victory." Chu Yang said indifferently, "However, it's precisely because anything can be found in books that this special technique of yours, the higher the level of cultivation, the greater the assistance it will provide to others. No wonder there are people who covet it. Even Heavenly Emperor Mo Yun, Yuan Tianji, requested for you to accompany him in his cultivation. Because, regardless of whether it's traces of the great Tao or the heavenly Tao, They can all be found in there. Chu Yang chuckled softly and said, if that's the case, even if we have to sacrifice 18 peak experts in exchange for your wholehearted support, we can still complete this transaction. The cost is certainly not small, but the profit is even greater. The muscles on Crazy Book's face instantly twitched. He gasped for breath and suddenly laughed. I didn't know that I was worth so much. I didn't know that I was worth so much until today. Ha ha ha, the more profound the meaning of a technique is, the harder it is to cultivate it. For example, Senior's Heavenly Book Divine Technique. If you can really cultivate it to the extreme, then it's all-encompassing. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's omnipotent. Chu Yang raised his eyes and said, now, you should be stuck at this bottleneck, right? Yes. Crazy Book sighed, all these years, I've been disheartened. The progress of my cultivation is indeed not big. Chu Yang smiled faintly and said, moreover, because you have to wholeheartedly assist Yuan Tianji in his cultivation, this process probably requires you to give your all without reservation. This is also one of the reasons why you haven't made any progress. It may even be the biggest reason. It's understandable to repay a debt of gratitude. A drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring, let alone such a big debt of gratitude. Crazy Book laughed self-mockingly, ha 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 ha. His laughter had an indescribable sadness and bitterness, which almost broke one's heart. Chu Yang was silent for a moment. Then, he said, what realm has Yuan Tianji reached now? Crazy Book sighed deeply and said, at present, he has already broken through the shackles of the ultimate saint. If it was 1,000,000 years ago, his cultivation was far from Shuelei Han's. He was even one of the few people who ranked behind after Di. But now, his cultivation is probably not inferior to Shuelei Han, who is now recognized as the number one after Di. In fact, he might even surpass him. Chu Yang made a sound of agreement and nodded. But in his heart, he had a deeper understanding and evaluation of Yuan Tianji's strength. Yuan Tianji was already so powerful, but he had always been so low-key after Di. The impression that he gave people was always that he was one of the last few. If they were to encounter him rashly, Shuelei Han might really be at a disadvantage. If it wasn't for the fact that Chu Yang killed his son this time, which made him unable to tolerate it and sent out troops to suppress Chu Yang in anger, which led to him sending out Crazy Book in the end. And Crazy Book was unexpectedly persuaded by Chu Yang. He might still be kept in the dark about this matter. Why has Yuan Tianji been hiding his strength all this time? Chu Yang frowned and asked, he is already the master of a part of the world. Why would a supreme figure of the heavenly imperial court hide his strength like this? Crazy Book's expression changed, but he didn't say anything. Chu Yang continued to guess to himself, could it be that he is pretending to be weak to his enemy? But, who is his enemy? Crazy Book's expression became more and more ugly. He wanted to say something but stopped. In the end, he swallowed his words. At this moment, Chu Yang also stopped this somewhat awkward topic. Changing to another topic, he said, if Senior Book King can achieve great success in the Heavenly Book Divine Technique, then, I believe that without anyone's guidance, with the all-encompassing Heavenly Book Divine Technique, finding out the mastermind and the real culprit, should be very confident. Xu Kuang smiled bitterly and said, how could I not know this? However, the fact that my Heavenly Book Divine skill could reach this level is already unprecedented. It's the first of its kind. Because of this, after reaching the bottleneck of this level, there's naturally no more reference for me to use. Everything has to depend on myself. Since then, I have been disheartened and have no more motivation to go further. Also, in order to return Yuan Tianji's favor, I have to do my best to assist him. I see. It's human nature. But, if your state of mind is always like this, even if you find the real culprit in the future, do you still need Yuan Tianji's help? Chu Yang smiled meaningfully and said, what's more? How can you be sure that the 18 people you killed are the real culprits who tried to kill you back then? You said that at the beginning of the battle, you were seriously injured and your consciousness was in a mess because of the joint attack of a group of people. What evidence do you have to confirm that the 18 people you killed are the real culprits who killed your wife and concubines back then? Also, so far, you've only killed 18 murderers. Where's the leader? He's the real executioner. Yuan Tianji is so resourceful. Since he can find the first 18 people, why can't he find the last one? Chu Yang's eyes were as sharp as a knife. To put it bluntly, are the 18 people you killed really the same group who attacked you back then? Yuan Tianji said, those 18 people are the culprits, and you believed him and never doubted him? Have your enemies really been killed by you? Chu Yang said, perhaps, among the 18 people who died, 1 or 2 of them who were killed by you at the beginning was indeed the real culprits. I mean, if my conjecture is true, but the people in the future may not be the real culprit. Or even none of them may be the real culprits. After all, high-level saints are also very rare. If we can use this to weaken the strength of the enemy's experts, wouldn't we be helping others and ourselves? Chu Yang said heavily, I think you should understand what I mean. Senior Crazy Book. Crazy Book was sweating profusely when he heard this. He had always thought so and had never doubted it. Just as Chu Yang said, Yuan Tianji helped him find the culprits. At the beginning, he had questioned the few people in detail. There was also one person whom he tortured to death and confirmed to be the real culprits of that day. But, when he killed people later on, it was half based on the confessions given by those people and half with Yuan Tianji's help. After he found the culprits, he killed them indiscriminately and without leaving any leeway. Killing people without leaving any leeway was certainly satisfying, but on the other hand, it also lacked the true intention of cutting off all enmity. Even if Yuan Tianjie was a suspect, if Yuan Tianjie was prepared to sacrifice the lives of these 18 people, even if that was the case, Yuan Tianjie would still spare a few people and let the others, or those who disobeyed Yuan Tianjie, be the scapegoat. Anyway, they had already been killed. The dead tell no tales. Now that he thought about it, the more powerful the real culprits were, the more powerful they were. Some of them were even super experts of their own world. Even though he had put in a lot of effort to set them up, it also took a lot of manpower and material resources to succeed. Every time he thought of this, he would be more grateful to Yuan Tianji. But, was it Yuan Tianji who helped him take revenge, or was he just listening to one side and working for others? The Heavenly Book Divine Technique is all-encompassing. It probably includes the way of hatred, right? Chu Yang said lightly, I heard that if one's cultivation reaches a high level, he can go back in time. Speaking of this, Chu Yang's eyes looked up. Opposite him, Crazy Book was shocked. Chapter 2255. Using your own powerful thoughts to lock onto something. Let this matter replay all the causes and effects in front of you in an instant. Chu Yang said lightly, I can't guarantee that the Heavenly Book Divine Technique doesn't have its own special ability, but I think that you should make the final decision on everything by yourself. You should see the result with your own eyes. This is better. Perhaps this is the only way to be worthy of yourself and worthy of. Xu Kuang was silent for a long time and said, Thank you for your advice. Chu Yang's words undoubtedly had a great impact on Xu Kuang. It was so great that Xu Kuang himself couldn't understand it. Xu Kuang asked himself honestly. Everything that happened in his life had traces of being manipulated by someone, including being ambushed, escaping, and then taking revenge. Even until now, he still had a bad feeling of being led by the nose. Since when did his life become like this? Xu Kuang kept thinking and thinking. Finally, he couldn't help but ask this question modestly. Chu Yang thought for a long time and said after some deliberation, I don't know if it's right or not, but I have such a feeling. What feeling? Tell me in detail. Xu Kuang asked anxiously. When you first started cultivating the Heavenly Book Divine Technique, did you advance quickly at the beginning? Far faster than ordinary cultivators? Chu Yang asked. Yes. At that time, did you feel that you had no distractions? Did you only want to advance by leaps and bounds? Could it be that after advancing all the way to a very high level, he suddenly stopped advancing? And then you started to get a wife? Yes. But what's the problem? Xu Kuang asked curiously. What's the problem? It's a big problem. Chu Yang smiled and said, This is one of the disadvantages of reading too much. Xu Kuang said seriously, I'd like to hear the details. Of course, I'm not saying that reading too much is necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying that reading too much will make you read too much. Because the principles in books are often contradictory to each other. For example, a person's behavior may be recognized in one book, but it will be criticized in another book. All kinds of thoughts will gather together to guide you unconsciously. So, your thoughts will often deviate from one another at any time. It's hard to determine. Your behavior is better than mine. There was a saying that went, those who uphold justice are mostly dog butchers, while those who betray justice are mostly scholars. Why? Chu Yang said somewhat mockingly, dog butchers don't read much. Their thoughts are one-track-minded. If you are good to me, I will naturally be good to you. If you can kill for me, I will sell my life for you. It's that simple and pure. This is the truest and most fundamental feeling, the most direct spirit of loyalty. Although countless people scolded me for being blindly loyal, I have to admit that this kind of loyalty is quite touching. You can deny it, but you can't deny it. And why do we say that scholars are heartless? Why are scholars so heartless? Actually, in my opinion, the so-called scholars are heartless is somewhat arbitrary. Because after reading a lot of books, one naturally knows how to weigh gains and losses. Everything should be weighed, but weighing is also the most terrible thing to do. Because once there is a comparison, then there is only one reason to move forward, while there are thousands of reasons to move backward. If a person saves your life, you owe him a life-saving grace, and one day this person is framed and killed, shouldn't you take revenge for him? And will you take revenge for him? Perhaps your first reaction would be to take revenge for him. This is something you should do as a human being. But after carefully weighing it, you will feel that taking revenge for him will cause you to face a lot of trouble, and you will even lose yourself. And you still have children and grandchildren, so you can't die. And you still have beautiful wives and concubines, so you can't die. And you still have parents, so you can't die. And you still have a great future, so you really can't die. If I use a more dignified way of saying it, it's that a wise man won't do it. With all these choices, a wise man often dispels your thoughts of taking revenge for your benefactor. So you start to think of another way. I can't take revenge for him like this. It's not beneficial to him, and it's harmful to me. I can choose to take revenge in other ways. For example, I'm an official, and I happen to be in charge of this area. I can do this and that. For example, I can take good care of his parents, wife, and children, and not let them be wronged. Is that it? Leave a useful body, and do endless things. Xu Kuang said in a perplexed manner, if you say it like this, it makes some sense. Taking a roundabout way of repaying a debt of gratitude is still repaying a debt of gratitude. Acting rashly for a moment can really cause a greater tragedy. Chu Yang smiled faintly. That's why I said that your character is easily swayed by others. What I want to tell you is that as long as you walk on the path of ingratitude, you'll be an ingrate for the rest of your life. When you become an official and come to this area, you'll naturally want to redress your grievances. But if you find out that the family you want to target is very important to the political achievements of your area, and they're extremely powerful. They have people above them, and they're extremely fawning over you. Even if it's a very difficult matter, as long as you have the help of this family, you'll be able to get it done very quickly. Once you kill him, it'll be the same as. In any case, that good friend of yours has already been dead for more than a dozen years. He doesn't have any memories. At this time, what will you do? When your friend just died, you're so angry that you can't even take revenge for him. After the passage of time, can you still act rashly for a moment? The most frightening thing is to weigh the gains and losses like this, and forget your original intention. After weighing and weighing, all the beautiful feelings in the world will be completely destroyed, and not a single drop will be left. So, it's not a bad thing to read too much. But as long as the books are reasonable, they'll be affected. That's a bad thing. And you happen to be at this stage. At the beginning, you don't know how difficult the heavenly book divine technique is. You just keep your head down and focus on cultivation. Naturally, you'll be able to advance bravely and make rapid progress. But after reaching a certain point, you'll realize that the road ahead is really too wide. It's really too all-encompassing. This will instead give birth to fear and slack in your heart. This is the biggest obstacle for your cultivation to stagnate. Chuyang said coldly, those who are righteous are mostly dog butchers, while those who are unfaithful are mostly scholars. King of books, you're now a heartless person. Your wife and concubine were killed. You also want to take revenge, but you didn't follow your original intention. Instead, you went to investigate and find out the real murderer. You just killed whoever others say it was. Do you think that you'll be done after killing the murderer? If I say that everyone in the world is your enemy, will you also kill them all? What does this blind revenge have to do with your hatred for your wife and concubine? It's fine if you kill the right person. If you kill the wrong person, you'll be committing another sin for them in the underworld. Xu Kuang was sweating profusely. His stable state of mind at the level of a high-level saint collapsed at this moment. As the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's recruitment activities became more and more vigorous, more and more experts from all over the Demon Emperor Heaven gathered. And this phenomenon lasted for more than 2 months before it slowly decreased. With so many people gathering, the venue naturally needed to be big enough. Slowly, the surrounding 3,000 miles around Luohua City became the territory of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. This 3,000 miles of land was called the Land of Heavenly Punishment by later generations. Because there were lightning and thunder almost every day, and almost every day, there were people who broke through their own limits. Ever since the Heavenly Devil War, there had never been a place like this in the entire Heaven Imperial Court. Of course, the intensity of the training here was enough to make one wish they were dead when they thought about it. It was a nightmare of the past. There was once a veteran who, after the war on the Heavenly Devil battlefield, was asked about the day he received training in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. He couldn't help but tremble with fear on his face. He said, "I'd rather continue to fight on the extraterritorial devil battlefield for 10,000 years, than go back to that damned place to stay for one more day." What's the Heavenly Devil Demon Territory? That damned place is the real demon territory. So, this sentence was extended and became a famous saying. 10,000 years of extraterritorial devil-slaying war is not as good as one day of Minister Yang's training. When this sentence came out, all the soldiers who had trained in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion burst into tears. It's really too damn. My heart. It said what I wanted to say the most but dared not say the most. It's so satisfying. How can the days of training under Minister Chu be spent as a human? If it wasn't for the sudden outbreak of the devil-slaying war, everyone would almost think that this sadistic madman was simply torturing people. Of course, this was a story for another time. Mo Qingwu, who had achieved great success in her cultivation, came all the way south. The scenery was beautiful, but she was eager to go home. At the same time, it was winter in the Heaven Imperial Court, and it was snowing heavily. Tens of thousands of miles were white, and the rivers and mountains were all shining with silver light. Mo Qingwu, dressed in red, flashed across the snow-white land. Like a red cloud, she floated away. Her beautiful hair was like a waterfall. The red cloud steel bow on the top of her head spread its wings. On her snow-white jade-like face, there was a slight blush that did not disperse. It was the throbbing of the impending meeting. Her slim figure was graceful and charming. Her slim waist was wrapped in a red belt, as if it could be grasped with one hand. The peerless beauty went all the way south. Naturally, there were many untactful people along the way who blocked her way. Some were smiling mischievously, some were robbing, and some were using all kinds of underhanded methods. Mo Qingwu came all the way with a smile, and left all the way with a smile. For those who didn't do anything for themselves, she lightly punished them. If she didn't do anything for herself, she would be done with it. If she met those who pestered her or used some despicable underhanded methods, then there was nothing to say. She directly drew her saber. Dreaming of a gentle dance saber appeared in the world again. When the saber was drawn, the starlight shone and danced lightly. But immediately, many people turned into remnant souls under the saber. Along the way, she had already crossed the fog river. Chapter 2256. I heard that this place is only 7 days away from Luohua City where Chuyang is. With my speed, as long as I put in a little more effort, I should be able to get there in 3 days. Mo Qingwu heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. The end of this road was near. At this moment, she suddenly heard a loud noise in the sky. Then, she saw 2 rainbows flash violently, and then disappeared in the sky. It's really strange. It's already winter. And, it's still snowing heavily. How can a rainbow appear here? Mo Qingwu wrinkled her elegant brows. She was puzzled as she muttered to herself. Although her current cultivation was very high, she still didn't understand the higher level of cultivation of the Saint Peak. After her cultivation improved that day, she couldn't wait to travel the Jianghu. Naturally, she had never heard of it. Although she had doubts in her heart, hurrying on was more important now. So, she hurried on. After walking for hundreds of miles, she unexpectedly heard a faint groan coming from the side of the forest. Is someone injured? Mo Qingwu hesitated and thought, in this cold weather, the injured person is too pitiful. Mo Qingwu was kind by nature. Thinking of this, she turned and followed the sound. Entering the dense forest, she saw a human head poking out from under the snow with difficulty. Suddenly, a dark human head emerged from the pure white snowy ground. Mo Qingwu was startled at once. No matter how high her cultivation was, Mo Qingwu was still a girl in the prime of her life. Unexpectedly seeing such a situation, how could she not be shocked? Taking a closer look, this person's head seemed to still be attached to his body. However, he was forcing himself to crawl out. After crawling out halfway, he couldn't crawl any further. His 2 hands were about to stiffen. If no one came to save him, he would probably die completely. Mo Qingwu patted her chest and murmured, I was scared to death. I thought it was a ghost. It turned out to be half human and half ghost. This person was now in such a state. How was he different from half human and half ghost? However, if Mo Qingwu didn't help, the remaining half of the person would soon become the other half of the ghost. Mo Qingwu cautiously walked over and patted that person's cheek, saying, I say, are you okay? That person had already fainted, but after being slapped on the face, his instincts kicked in and he immediately woke up. He opened his eyes, and a sharp gaze shot out. It was actually mixed with endless dignity. He said in a low voice, You dare to slap my face. Along with these words, an awe-inspiring and inviolable aura surged out. However, what was completely inconsistent with his imposing manner was, right after he finished speaking, his head tilted to the side, and he fainted once more. That imposing aura instantly vanished into thin air. Mo Qingwu was startled when she saw this. It wasn't because of that imposing aura, but because she was puzzled. This guy was already so miserable, yet he didn't care about his own life, but his face. You're about to die, so what's wrong with me patting your face to save you? Besides, it wasn't like I was hitting you. I was trying to wake you up. Mo Qingwu was a little unhappy with this stranger's rudeness. She frowned and looked at him for a moment, but then she realized that this guy's hands and feet were cold, and he could die at any time. Finally, she was moved. With a wave of her hand, the frozen soil on the ground exploded with a bang. This person's body slid out of the soil, but his body still didn't have the strength to support itself, and instantly collapsed onto the snowy ground. He didn't move. Mo Qingwu first reached out to feel the main artery on his neck. After confirming that he was still alive, she then reached out to check his pulse. After checking his pulse for a while, she couldn't help but stick out her tongue. To be able to live with such injuries, as far as I know, only Rui Bu Tong can do it. It seems that even Chuyang can't do it. His meridians were all destroyed, his dantian was shattered, and his internal organs were all cracked. They could develop into pieces at any time. Although he was in such a state, there was still a mysterious and powerful force in his body that barely protected his heart and meridians, preserving his vitality, and not causing his soul to dissipate. This was simply a miracle of life. Or it could be said that this was the benefit of a high-level cultivator. Unless there was an extremely high-level cultivator himself, it was impossible to still be alive in such a situation. It's a pity that the heavy pills that Chu Yang gave me have all been used up. There's no immediate treatment method. I can only use ordinary methods now, and I don't know how to treat him." Mo Qingwu hesitated for a moment, and finally took out a small jade bottle from her bosom. She opened the bottle, and there were 3 snow-white pills inside, exuding a rich fragrance. She reached out and pinched this person's mouth, but she couldn't pinch it open. What else was there to say? Naturally, she slapped him again. Smack. It was still the manual effect that was more obvious and immediate. This person, who was almost dead for 10 minutes, actually opened his eyes again. His hair stood on end, and he said furiously, You hit my face again." Mo Qingwu only waited for him to open his mouth before she poured the 3 pills into it. Crisp. Just as he finished speaking, his eyes rolled back, and he fainted again. What a weirdo. Mo Qingwu sighed. He doesn't even care about his life, and only cares about his face. Could this be the legendary dead face? He's a bit like that guy Tan Tan. The 3 pills that Mo Qingwu gave him were very unusual. They were the unique panacea of the dreamlike veranda, the red dust heaven reversal pill. The red dust heaven reversal pill was the #1 life-saving medicine in the dreamlike veranda. Although the effect of this pill was still far from being comparable to Chu Yang's heavy pills, it was still one of the top few panacea in this heaven imperial court. Even an ordinary high-level saint might not be able to have panacea of this level. Mo Qingwu used 3 pills at once. She was really generous. And because she used 3 pills at once, this person's condition immediately improved. His breath was obviously stronger than before. Although he was still in a coma, his life was definitely saved. Mo Qingwu stood up and frowned. When I left the mountain this time, I asked for 2 bottles of this heaven reversal pill. Now, 1 bottle is gone. Originally, I thought that I would be able to see Chu Yang immediately, and I didn't need any heaven reversal pill, so it wasn't worth it. Now, if there's another one like this, both bottles will be gone. Besides, saving this person's life is a good thing, but this place is in the middle of nowhere. This person is lying here. If I don't take care of him properly, I'm afraid he might die in a while. But how can I take him away in this situation? Mo Qingwu bit her finger and thought for a long time. She was a big girl. Whether she carried him or carried him, it was not appropriate. Although this guy looked quite old, it was still not okay. He was a man after all. After thinking for a long time, she clapped her hands. Got it. Mo Qingwu chopped off a few branches with a few shua 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 sounds. Then, she casually arranged them, and quickly made a sleigh. Then, she used her hand to make a buckle. Then, she broke off a big branch with a catcher sound, and stuck the branch in the buckle. Then, she used her hand to pull the other end of the big branch, and dragged it for 2 steps. It was actually very smooth in this snowy environment. This idea is not bad. Mo Qingwu took out a blanket from her space ring, and laid it out. She put the person on it, and covered him with a thin blanket. She murmured, I only brought 2 sets of blankets with me. I've already given you 1. You'll have to bear with it if it's cold. Don't freeze to death. When we reach a place where there are many people, I'll get a carriage to pull you, and you'll be comfortable. After she finished speaking, she pulled with her hand. Immediately, snow and dust flew behind her. A graceful figure in red pulled the snow sled all the way, rolling forward just like that. A delicate figure pulling a snow sled. This scene was strange no matter how one looked at it. It seemed very strange. What was even stranger was that this super simple and crude snow sled made of a few branches, which looked like it would fall apart at the slightest touch, was actually moving forward so fast on the snowy ground. If someone saw this, their eyeballs and jaws would probably fall to the ground together. Mo Qingwu kept moving forward. After walking for only a few dozen miles, she suddenly stopped and said with great annoyance, Really, the good things don't come true, but the bad things do. Why is there another one here? Sure enough, on the side of the road, there was a man in black lying on his back, motionless. After a long time, she saw a little bit of white smoke coming out of his mouth and nose. This proved that he was still alive. Mo Qingwu looked at him in distress. Sigh, I've already saved one before. What's the harm in saving one more? She moved forward to take a look. This person was also seriously injured and was on the verge of death. She reached out to take his pulse. The extent of this person's injuries was actually about the same as the person just now. All his meridians were destroyed, his dantian was broken, his spirit was damaged, and his internal organs were all cracked. He looked like he would die at any time. In addition, he also used a strong force to protect the last bit of vitality in his heart meridians, maintaining his vitality. Why does this seem like you're deliberately torturing my crisis reversal pill? God, you're not playing with me, right? Mo Qingwu said sadly. She didn't say anything. She followed the same pattern and pinched the person's jaw, preparing to pour the medicine. What was depressing was that this person also didn't open his mouth and didn't cooperate. Mo Qingwu frowned. Thinking of the previous method, she waved her hand and slapped him. Slap. The sound of the slap was loud and clear. This person suddenly woke up, his eyes as round as bells. You actually dare to hit my face. After saying that, he tilted his head and fainted again. Mo Qingwu had already successfully poured the medicine into his mouth for the second time. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.